What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 4BS076, Harvest of the Silver Treasure Chest, the Mecha Beyond the Pacifist. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement, yes, Stussy took the order without hesitation. Then they dragged St. Charlos and the brother and sister Shalulia Palace away. Because these two guys are now weak with fear, can't even stand anymore. So we can only drag it on. This is the first time Stussy has been tasked with executing celestial dragons. Have to say, at this moment, her heart was extremely shocked. She never thought of it, Lord Ron actually treated the celestial dragons rudely. Because Stussy is the one who knows Ron's true identity. So she knows Ron is also a celestial dragon's, and he is Im's younger brother. So it is inevitable that she will have some prejudices in her heart. She believes that Ron's justice also has limits. That is to say, treat ordinary people with ordinary people's standards. To treat celestial dragons, there are standards for treating celestial dragons. But now, she just found out, Ron actually treated everyone equally. Even if celestial dragons made a mistake, they would be severely punished. Following Ron along the way, Stussy saw too many incredible scenes. Marine Vice Admiral, who released water for his grandson. Alabasta rashly takes the credit for Marine and the fishy Marine Admiral. Each one was severely punished by Ron, and now. Even the Tianlong received the same treatment, and it's also vigorous and resolute. There was no room for maneuver for these two men at all. Have to say, at this moment, Stussy truly respected Ron from the bottom of her heart. This loyalty is not tied to Ron's identity as before. He didn't do this just because he was ordered by Sama. She now genuinely wants to follow Ron, want to see what the world created by Master 077 looks like. I want to see the moment when Marine, who has been purged by this master, becomes the embodiment of justice again. She wanted to witness it with this lord, accompanied by cheers from residents throughout the Sabaody archipelago. Two celestial dragons were escorted down by soldiers. Looking at all the residents of the Sabaody archipelago, this joy comes from the inside out. This shows how miserable they are usually bullied by these two celestial dragons. This isn't the first time these two guys have come down. They committed numerous crimes every time they visited the Sabaody archipelago. Just 2 days ago, these two celestial dragons killed a couple. Have to say, advertisement this time, Ron gave everyone a break. At this moment, Ron's popularity in Sabaody archipelago has reached unprecedented heights. In the crowd, there was also a mermaid who quietly poked his head out. This person is Kami. At that time, these two celestial dragon siblings wanted to buy Kami away. Kami looked at Ron. I am also very grateful in my heart. Mermaids are very kind. Today Ron can be said to have avenged her. It's a great kindness. She also saw Marine's changes with her own eyes, so she decided to go back and tell the King of the Fishmen Island the news. After all, the King of the Fishmen Island has always wanted to establish diplomatic relations with humans, but he has never been able to find a reliable human leader. Kami feels that this Inspector General is a good candidate. At this time, Zon Taowen, who was previously imprisoned by Rayleigh, finally appeared. He took several pacifists with him, came to Ron. This was the first time Ron had looked at a pacifist so closely. Technology products of this world. In fact, the effect is just so-so. A robot like this has decent attack power, but its movement speed is much slower. And neither is flexibility, and a little silly. It's okay for dealing with ordinary small pirates. But for some pirates with hundreds of millions, it is really not enough. In Ron's opinion, this kind of pacifist is really useless. Any pirate who knows hockey will not be afraid of them. It has to be said that Vegapunk's technological level is still average. It may be due to the technological limitations of the pirate world. So Vegapunk has no way to break through bottleneck. Inspector General, where is the trouble? Zon Taowen asked suddenly as soon as he came back. Because he didn't see Kizaru, Tashigi helped answer. Kizaru Admiral is capturing Luffy and his gang. After a while, Kaku, Khalifa and other CP9 came over to report. Lord Inspector General, the pirates around have basically been eliminated. A total of 2,125 pirates were captured. Among them, 72 have received bounties of more than 30 million yuan. There are 8 people with bounties of more than 100 million. Ron nodded. Then he said to them, for all losses caused by Marine, please contact the parties immediately and compensate them at the original price. Yes, Khalifa accepted the order and went to count. The damage caused by Kizaru alone was already several buildings. After all, this is Marine's fault, so it should be compensated. Ron did this all for Marine's reputation. Marine's reputation before was extremely bad. So Ron could only save it bit by bit. Advertisement. These details are important in restoring Marine's reputation. As expected, when Ron made this decision, he achieved immediate results. Let the ordinary people around them applaud. This is the first time Marine has been held responsible for their losses. Before this, when Marine fought with the pirates, many of their houses were involved. Many of their homes were destroyed, but never took care of them. He didn't even come over to ask a question afterwards. They can only admit that they're unlucky. I thought it would be the same this time. But I never expected it. Not really. The Inspector General has even considered this for them. This is great. How great it would be if there were people like the Inspector General in Marine. At this moment, Zon Taowen looked at CP9 in disbelief. Why, BFBH, do you feel you have become so much stronger? Naturally, there was an intersection between them. It's just that the last time we met, I didn't feel that the other party was so strong. But this time, he found that they were already much stronger than him. What happened? CP9 said calmly, because I train with the Inspector General every day. Basically everything on this island has settled down. So, Ron just needs to wait here for Kizaru's results now. Being idle is also idle. Ron happened to take out the silver treasure chest from before. This is the silver treasure chest he obtained from handling the Kizaru fishing incident. This time, Ron doesn't plan to turn it into a gold treasure chest. Ron was ready to open it directly. He has opened bronze treasure chests and gold treasure chests, but he has never opened silver treasure chests. So Ron is also curious. What level of items will be found in the silver treasure chest? Do you want to open the silver treasure chest? Whether. Ron actually took it out and naturally wanted to open it. Yes. Soon, the silver treasure chest burst into light red light. After opening, a small red box appeared, and the thick drawings below. Ron took the box in his hand. The system will immediately put the detailed description in Ron's mind. Nanosuit. Nanosuit will be covered around the body within 1 second after use, infinite recovery. Nanosuit production drawings. Ultra-detailed production method of zero-based nanosuit, not infinitely recoverable. See, Ron looked at the small box-like thing in his hand. Advertisement in this stack of drawings. I couldn't help but take a breath. Isn't this Iron Man's suit, the last nanosuit? Super easy to wear. Ron couldn't help but look at the pacifist at this moment. I was complaining before that this thing is bulky and needs to be controlled. I didn't expect to find a replacement so quickly. Moreover, it is based on zero-based design and construction drawings. In other words, mass production is possible. The effect of this kind of thing on improving Marines' combat power is quite obvious. Just imagine if a Marine soldier put this on and participated in some war. That kind of scene is not much more powerful than that of pacifists. Ron decided to give it a try first, so he placed the nanosuit box on his chest. This one is much easier to use than the Iron Man one. Ron clicked twice. In an instant, with the box as the center, the suit continued to spread, covering the whole body in about a second. Suddenly this scene appeared. This shocked Zon Taomaru and others. Zon Momomaru, let your pacifists attack me. Ron wanted to give it a try to see what the attack and defense power of this nanosuit was like in this world. Zon Taowen was confused when he heard this. Have no idea what Ron is going to do. Doesn't he know how powerful pacifists can be? That's an attack weapon made with Mr. Kizaru's ability. The attack power of Mr. Kizaru is exactly the same. This is Vegapunk's masterpiece. Is this Inspector General crazy? If pacifism really attacks him, it will only depend on the thin layer of iron he wears. I can't resist it at all. Did he look down on pacifists a little too much? Lord Inspector General, the attack power of pacifists is very strong. This is an order, just let him attack. Ron interrupted Zon Momomaru. Even if this nanosuit cannot defend himself, Kizaru's laser hitting him is almost like tickling him. Ron didn't care at all. Zon Taomaru could not refuse the order and could only say. PX-1 attacks the Inspector General. PX-1 immediately targets Ron. Then start scanning. Then, a jerky mechanical voice said. Insufficient permissions to attack this person. Zon Taowen was confused. He is the user of all pacifists. There is now no way to order pacifists to attack the Inspector General. He even said that he did not have enough authority. How is this possible? You have the highest authority. Let alone attack the Inspector General. If an attack on Sengoku is ordered, the pacifists will launch an attack immediately without hesitation. What is the identity of this Inspector General? Does he have higher authority than me? 077. Vegapunk is confused. This technology is 500 years ahead of me. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement. This is really not because Zon Momoun's authority is too low. Because what he got was indeed the highest authority of a pacifist. Even Vegapunk's authority is the same as his, so. Zon Taowen felt a little weird. Who has the authority to override Vegapunk? Don't forget, Vegapunk is the creator of these pacifists. No one else can understand the shock in Zon Momoun's heart now. He knew the pacifists all too well. This thing is a war machine, so he has information about all the characters in his mind. That is to say, he can identify any person by scanning them. To determine the target of attack, this is also the most advanced point about pacifists. Today, pacifists are unable to attack the Inspector General. And it's still because of insufficient permissions. This is enough to show that in the pacifist database, there is such a person as the Inspector General. And the status is set quite high. At this moment, Zon Taowen. Ron looked at him in disbelief. There was a murmur in my heart. Who is this man? What is his identity? It's definitely not as simple as the Inspector General. There is no need for Vegapunk to have such high-level authority for an Inspector General. And this time, Ron got a little impatient with waiting and then said. Zon Momomaru, didn't you hear what I said? Let your pacifists turn on me. Hurry up. Zon Taowen had a dark look on his face. I really want him to attack, but I don't have enough authority. So he could only say helplessly, Lord Inspector General, I cannot direct pacifists to attack you. I don't have enough authority. The Inspector General's authority should be above mine. Maybe you can order him to attack yourself. This was also the only method Zon Taomaru came up with. Today, the supreme command of the pacifists is Ron. So, only Ron himself can order pacifists to attack him. Ron was a little surprised. I didn't expect 5 elders to be quite thoughtful. It seemed that they were afraid that they would be accidentally injured by pacifists, so they wrote their identity information into it in advance. And it also gave the highest authority. Although these 5 guys are a bit stubborn, they are quite careful in their work. Ron put a small red flower in his heart to show his appreciation. PX-1, launch the strongest attack on me. Sure enough, when Ron finished this sentence, the jerky mechanical sound of PX-1 came out again. Advertisement, identity verification completed. Activate highest authority, start attacking. Zon Taowen couldn't help but cover his forehead. It seems that this Inspector General really has the highest authority. Still, he was a little worried about the Inspector General. After all, the pacifist's attack capabilities are the same as Mr. Kizaru's. That's like a laser pulse, and how can the Inspector General defend himself with just this thin layer of iron clothing? Just when he was wondering, the pacifists were ready to attack. I saw him open his mouth. A yellow laser light condensed in the mouth. After a short period of energy accumulation, a hissing sound. It came out violently and at an extremely fast speed. The huge backlash even made the pacifists take a small step back. Ron asked him to activate the strongest attack, so pacifist uses a longer charging time than normal attacks. The recoil produced is also much greater. At this moment, Zon Taowen and others' hearts were in their throats. I'm afraid that this laser will hurt the Inspector General. But at this time it was too late to stop it, the laser had already been fired. But he suddenly discovered that the Inspector General was standing there without moving. Instead, he reached out his hand. Then, a light blue energy shield unfolded from the arm. Keep the Inspector General behind you. The energy shield is transparent and looks vulnerable. The yellow laser hits the blue energy shield. The resulting shockwave spreads outward in a form visible to the naked eye. Zon Taowen almost stopped standing. At this moment, he didn't have time to admire the offensive power of Mr. Kizaru's ability. Because he found out, the Inspector General did not even retreat. This looks like a thin light blue energy shield. It's so solid. The yellow laser blasted for a long time, but it didn't shake him at all. How can it be? It's just a thin layer of light blue energy shield. It has such a great defense history. Subsequently, Ron put away his energy shield. At the same time, point your hands forward. The next moment, many suspended energy cannons came out from behind. Immediately afterwards, the red energy cannon emits 4 laser beams, instantly penetrating PX-1. There was a boom. PX-1 exploded directly. A pacifist whose cost was comparable to that of a warship was destroyed in an instant. This scene immediately left Zon Taomaru stunned. Pacifist attacks on the Inspector General were ineffective. But the Inspector General's attack destroyed the pacifists with one blow. Advertisement: the same kind of laser weapon, although the color is not the same. But it can be seen. The Inspector General's attack power is even better. Is this the power of that magical suit? It obviously looks so thin. It's no different from the clothes you normally wear. He looked like he hadn't been beaten before. I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Stronger than the bulky pacifist, in the coming time. Ron tried flying and other various actions. This feature just makes up for Ron's inability to fly. And this suit is also very compact. It's a small round box, about the size of a pocket watch. Normally just stick it on your chest. Use it quickly with just 2 clicks. It is not difficult to determine the basic operation. If an average Marine soldier has a little training, it can be perfectly controlled in half a month, and at this moment. In a secret experimental base at Marine headquarters. Vegapunk looked at this scene in disbelief. For every pacifist there's a videophone bug. That is to say, he can watch the vision of several other pacifists in real time on this monitoring platform. And the various performances of Ron's nanosuit just now. Everything is seen by Vegapunk, as the strongest scientist in the pirate world. At this moment, his heart was extremely shocked. What technology is this? At least 500 years ahead of me. Normally you are only ahead of others, but once you buy it, someone is 500 years ahead of you in technology. At least 500 years. How is it possible? How did he do it? Can he put so many weapons in such a small space? The nanosuit is just too small. It's not much different from ordinary clothes. But it does have a lot of features. Please give me flowers. 0. Can effortlessly defend against attacks like Kizaru's. It can also launch an attack that instantly destroys pacifists. The most incredible thing about Vegapunk is that it seems like this kind of suit can be worn by others. The smart Vegapunk immediately thought of the value of this kind of thing. This is much better than his so-called pacifist. Pacifists are machines after all, and their attacks are too slow and cumbersome. But Ron's suit can indeed be controlled by humans. How powerful it can be depends entirely on the person wearing it. If you arm the Marine soldiers, don't say too much. As long as there are 10 nanosuits, there will be no problem against ordinary Shichibukai. This allows Marine soldiers who have not been trained at all to instantly possess the fighting power of a Shichibukai. Advertisement: thinking of this, he became excited. I want to see this Inspector General, Vegapunk couldn't help but say. This was the first time he had an urge to meet someone. He really wanted to ask for advice. How did the other party do it? If he can teach me, then I will worship him as my teacher. 0. After Ron's general experiment was completed. Fall back to the ground. At the same time, remove the Nazan uniform. He sat back in the chair again. At this time, Zon Taowen no longer knew what to say. He didn't expect that this thing could be worn easily. Isn't this too convenient? He was still worried about whether this thin piece of iron could block the pacifist's attack. But now, don't worry at all, because the pacifists have been killed. Of course, Zon Momomaru would not pursue this matter of undermining the pacifists with the Inspector General. CP9 and others who were closest to Ron were not surprised. They, the Inspector General, always come up with some weird things. For example, the compass that can find people, this time also comes up with a wearable suit. Anyway, this Inspector General always surprises them. And at the same time, Kizaru has captured all the Straw Hats except Luffy. I have to say that it is too easy to catch them with Kizaru's speed. This group of people just scattered and escaped. It can't be as fast as Kizaru, but at this moment. Just when Kizaru was about to catch Luffy, suddenly something happened. Bartholomew Kuma suddenly stood in front of him. This not only made Kizaru frown. At this time, Bartholomew Kuma whispered. For some reasons, I want to rescue this group of people now. Crazy, what are you whispering to me? Kizaru was afraid that Ron would misunderstand. Take 2 steps back quickly. I couldn't help but look back. He found Ron sitting there and staring at him, and his eyes were already a little unkind. Kizaru was speechless. Shang, you are crazy. Do you need to whisper to me about this? I'm not familiar with you. I have been beaten 3 times by the Inspector General today. You suddenly ran over and said this to me. What if the Inspector General thinks that you and I are on the same team? What if he misunderstands me again and lets Luffy go on purpose? Doesn't this old man still need to be beaten? I have been diagnosed with PTSD. Don't cheat me. This old man Luffy has been captured. Even Jesus can't save him, that's what I said. 078. Kizaru. Listen to my explanation. I am really not an undercover Revolutionary Army agent. Previous chapter, next chapter advertisement. I've got Luffy. Jesus can't save him even if he comes. I said so. Kizaru was really speechless. Why'd I have so many twists and turns when I think about my next class? I didn't expect that Luffy would be the only one to catch him. And out came Bartholomew Kuma. What's even more disgusting is, this guy actually said in front of him that he wanted to rescue Luffy. Aren't you deliberately trying to embarrass me? Didn't you see there was someone behind me supervising the battle? I'm going through this day and night because of how many beatings Luffy received. You guy, you dare to come here and say you want to rescue Luffy? Impossible. Even if Garp comes today, there's no way he can be rescued. Kizaru really doesn't want to get beaten again today. He just wanted to catch Luffy quickly and get off work early. After being taught a lesson by Ron, Huang Yuan was exposed. Today he doesn't want to give any face to anyone. Garp and Dorag are all useless. Bartholomew Kuma was stunned for a moment, then returned to his expressionless expression. Holding a Bible in hand, glancing at Kizaru, then he took off his gloves. For some special reason, I have to rescue him. I thought you would understand. E1 RTB. Bartholomew Kuma just said, 473. Kizaru's old face darkened. He immediately interrupted. Shut up. Don't talk nonsense. I'm not familiar with you, so I don't understand you at all. What do you mean by me? Don't say these misleading words. Kizaru glanced at Ron behind him from the corner of his eye. Ron was supervising the battle on his chair, looking here with interest. He didn't want Ron to misunderstand. What if Ron misunderstands that he is a member of the Revolutionary Army because of Bartholomew Kuma's words? Moreover, Bartholomew Kuma's speech is so unclear that it is easy for people to misunderstand him. However, Kizaru never expected that. At this moment, Bartholomew Kuma not only did not stop talking, but continued to speak. What's wrong with you? Why pretend you don't know me? Don't you know whose son Luffy is? If it's clear, you should also understand why I came to save him. At this moment, Kizaru's face was turning dark purple. The wrinkles on the entire face became more obvious. Advertisement normally, his expression is always crooked, as if everything has nothing to do with me. But at this moment Kizaru, there was a feeling of nervousness on his face. Cold sweat actually appeared on his forehead. The corners of his mouth were twitching constantly. He quickly said, Don't talk nonsense. What do you mean I pretend not to know you? I don't know you in the first place. Also, whose son is this guy Luffy? What does it have to do with me? As a Marine, no matter whose son he is, I will arrest him without discrimination. Kizaru at this moment. The righteousness is awe-inspiring and the words are righteous. The red scarf on the chest is even brighter, this scene. Even Bartholomew Kuma, who has always been relatively calm, felt a little speechless. There was even a surprised expression on his calm face. He even doubted it. Who is this man in front of me? Has Kizaru been transferred? How could such righteous words and awe-inspiring words come from his mouth? This is absolutely impossible. That guy Kizaru has always had ambiguous justice. When did he become so determined? Moreover, there's no one around, so what are you pretending to be here? Bartholomew Kuma couldn't help but feel a little confused when he thought of this. He even looked around, found nothing strange about the people. There is a bald head just in the distance, but it is far away from here. Even if you whisper here, he can't hear you. In fact, Bartholomew Kuma still has some impressions of this bald head. On Ron's first day as Inspector General, all notifications from world government were sent to Shichibukai for their cooperation. Bartholomew Kuma only understood this. After all, he accepted the transformation of Vegapunk. So during this period, he still didn't know much about the outside world. It's not clear what Ron did, so he turned his eyes back to Kizaru. He said with an expression that I understand, Paluzolino, there's no one else here, so you don't have to act. Kizaru now wants to kill the other party. What the hell is this guy talking about? Can't you see that there is someone supervising behind me? Bartholomew Kuma, this is what I really think in my heart. What are you talking about? I don't understand at all. You can shut up. The more you talk, the more people get misunderstood. If I continue talking, I will really have nothing to do with the Revolutionary Army. Why does Bartholomew Kuma talk so much today? Based on my own understanding of him, this guy is not a talkative person. At this time, Bartholomew Kuma seemed to suddenly realize it. Then he said, Advertisement, I understand, you still don't know who Luffy is, right? It's no wonder that very few people know about this matter. He is the son of Dolog, the leader of our Revolutionary Army. At this moment, Kizaru was standing between him and Luffy. So Bartholomew Kuma has no way to directly rescue Luffy. Seeing how closely Kizaru was guarded, so he thought Kizaru didn't know Luffy's identity yet. Stop. Kizaru's face changed drastically. He immediately turned up the volume, fearing that Ron wouldn't be able to hear his explanation. It's your Revolutionary Army, it has nothing to do with me. Don't take any of our bites. I have told you a long time ago that no matter whose son he is, I will capture him. I don't even recognize the Dorag you're talking about. Moreover, Kizaru even made it louder to say that he did not know the 3 words. I'm afraid Ron won't hear me. At this time, Luffy behind him suddenly understood. This is the first time he has heard who his father is. I couldn't help but be stunned. Then he said somewhat happily. My father is the leader of the Revolutionary Army? So you have to save me. So, are you also members of the Revolutionary Army? Kizaru's old face darkened. There was a snap. Kicked Luffy away. I'm not. This eagerness to show off seems to be a rush to distance ourselves from the Revolutionary Army. As if he was telling Ron, who was watching the battle on the sidelines, I have nothing to do with the Revolutionary Army. You see, I even beat up Luffy. Kizaru was really speechless now. Bartholomew Kuma couldn't help but feel a little angry when he saw this scene. Then he said, it's enough to just make a point. Why are you so serious about it? Even if you want to kick him, you should kick him in my direction. Then let me pat him away. I'm going to pat him next to Dorag, where you will be safe. Bartholomew Kuma seems to be very dissatisfied with Kizaru's lack of understanding. Bartholomew Kuma, is there something wrong with your modified brain? Don't make it sound like I'm on the same team as you. How could I possibly kick Luffy next to you and ask you to rescue him? Kizaru clenched his fists. If you let this guy continue talking, you really can't explain it. You were originally a Revolutionary Army. Bartholomew Kuma threw his gloves on the ground, exposing the pads on his hands. He said unhurriedly, I just heard the words here. Kizaru was stunned. What nonsense is this idiot talking about? Advertisement, I have nothing to do with your Revolutionary Army. When did you become a member of your Revolutionary Army? I'm not, I didn't, don't listen to his nonsense. Kizaru immediately faced Ron's direction and explained quickly. I was afraid that Ron would hear Bartholomew Kuma's words and come over quickly and give him a kick. After all, Ron's attacks were always caught off guard. Whenever he made a mistake, Ron would quickly come over and kick him in the waist. Kizaru was also frightened by the beating. After being beaten for a day, no one else would be able to bear it. So I explained quickly. Bartholomew Kuma actually didn't finish his sentence, but the pause was a bit long. A very respected opponent. Bartholomew Kuma took off the glove on the other hand again and continued the previous sentence. Don't make me gasp when you speak. If you want to say it, just say it all clearly in one breath. Otherwise it would be easy for people to misunderstand Hundan. Kizaru was really broken. Nothing feels good today. Finally got a chance to catch Luffy and got off work quickly. As a result, this guy came over to get involved. If this suddenly misunderstands the Inspector General, let alone saying that I am off work. Being laid off is easy. I guess I'll have to sit in jail. Since you left Dorag and became a Marine, leader Dorag has often. Bartholomew Kuma seemed not to notice Kizaru's embarrassing dilemma in 4.4. Still talking to himself. Kizaru was crushed. If you let this guy continue talking, it will be really hard to explain. Kizaru didn't even think about it and kicked him at the speed of light. This guy kept talking. The more you say it, the more nonsense it becomes. Why does it sound like from his tone that I became a member of the Revolutionary Army, obeyed Dorag's order, said goodbye to him, and then joined Marine alone and became an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army? If this were normal, it would be nothing. But now that the Inspector General is here, if you are still talking nonsense, aren't you just trying to trick me? What can be tolerated by scholars is unbearable. He must not be allowed to continue talking, so, Kizaru took action directly. Bartholomew Kuma's meatball fruit can give him the ability to teleport and flash quickly over short distances. High speed, so he immediately dodged Kizaru's attack. However, Kizaru chased after him. At this time, he heard a voice that sent chills down his spine. Oh, Kizaru, it seems that you have a close relationship with the Revolutionary Army? The voice was very cold. Kizaru had a bad feeling. He quickly defended. Inspector General, I really have nothing to do with the Revolutionary Army. Don't listen to Bartholomew Kuma's nonsense. 079. Kizaru almost cried and beat up Luffy to prove his innocence. Previous chapter, next chapter advertisement. Kizaru looked like you believe me. As long as Ron didn't believe what he said, he would suffer. This Inspector General now has great power within Marine. It's not just possible to depose a Marine Vice Admiral with just one sentence. Even celestial dragons can be driven away. It can be said that there are 3 things that a new official should do when he takes office. More arrogant than 5 elders, Kizaru didn't dare to let go of the situation at this time and add fuel to these 3 fires. Kizaru's day was really miserable. He thought he had to get off work at 5 o'clock, and it was the worst time when he was beaten up by Ron. But I never expected it. Not really. It turns out that the worst thing is behind. Compared with the previous minor problems of fishing for oneself, the major crime of undercovering the Revolutionary Army has really become a matter of principle. Fishing and letting go are both internal conflicts among the people. So Ron just beat him twice. If you are accused of being an undercover Revolutionary Army agent, that would be a conflict between ourselves and the enemy. Kizaru has no doubt, that time, Ron would even kill him. What to do now? How can I explain this to the other person? Bartholomew Kuma, isn't this guy trying to trick me? In fact, Ron was far away from him just now. If it is a normal person, it will not be heard at all. This is why Bartholomew can talk to Kizaru so confidently. Because he believed that no one could hear him. But is Ron a normal person? This one has the physique of One Punch Man, if he wants to hear it. You can hear it clearly at this distance of 15 meters. So Ron heard clearly the conversation between Kizaru and Bartholomew Kuma just now. That's why he asked the question. In fact, many of Kizaru's behaviors are very weird. Sometimes more than just ambiguous justice can be explained. So, from a god's perspective, this guy really looks like an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army. He doesn't look like Marine at all. This can be seen from the few battles he participated in. In the Battle of Sabaody Archipelago, he repeatedly attacked Luffy and his group, lifting his legs for a long time without kicking anyone, while dealing with other supernovas just one kick at a time. Even when dealing with Marine's undercover Drake, he was merciless and kicked him harder than anyone else. This kind of behavior is indeed very suspicious if you think about it carefully. Not only that, advertisement, it was the same during the Summit War. It was beaten down the whole time without any dust on it. Look at Akainu, he was beaten so hard that he was covered in blood. And when dealing with Luffy, he was also suspected of letting go. There were so many people on the battlefield, and Kizaru was able to kick Luffy into Whitebeard's hands with a precise kick. You must know that Whitebeard's direction was the safest on the entire battlefield at that time. He just kicked Luffy there. He was very far away from Whitebeard at that time. There are so many pirates and marine soldiers fighting in the middle. But still able to accurately shoot, extremely accurate. Even if it wasn't intentional, no one would believe it. This accuracy is much better than that of the national football team. Especially the battle with his teacher Zephyr Admiral. Kizaru hit him so hard, that's not how you fight Rayleigh. This is why Ron asked this, looking at it from this perspective. In fact, Kizaru was really suspicious. Kizaru was afraid that Ron would misunderstand, so he immediately explained. I really have nothing to do with the Revolutionary Army. I just met Dorag when he was young. But since becoming a Marine, we haven't seen each other again. Different road non-phase plan. I have always drawn a clear line between myself and these rebels. I am inseparable from them. If I see them, I will be the first to rush forward and capture them. Kizaru said impassionedly. If someone who didn't know saw this scene, they would think that he was running from Marine Marshal. There is a sense of heroism that you will either die or live with the pirates. As if Marine has him for a day, the banner of justice will not waver. That's what I said. The Marine soldiers around them heard this sentence and their blood boiled with excitement. I wish I could kill the Revolutionary Army headquarters right now and capture the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dolog. Come and bring peace and tranquility to this world. Is this the same Kizaru who even slept during meetings? Is this the same Kizaru who was on the edge during the Summit War? If Ron didn't know Kizaru's performance in Summit War, it would be easy to believe his lies. Ron transformed the shape of the nanosuit into a chair. This kind of nanometer thing can be shaped at will. Considering Ron's defense and strength, there is no need for this kind of suit to increase his strength. But if you think of it as a chair that can be taken out at any time, it's still very convenient. Tap the circular device on the chest twice, and then the nanometers flow to form a very high-end looking chair. For example, Ron is sitting on a red chair transformed into a nanosuit. I saw Ron's thoughts move. Blue flames burst out from the four legs of the chair. Advertisement subsequently, under this reverse push force. The entire chair actually floated in the air, then it flew towards Kizaru. Have to say, this scene is still very cool. After seeing it, the ordinary people around me were filled with envy. What man wouldn't love this scene of a chair flying over? These Marine soldiers even had little stars in their eyes. Even Luffy forgot that he was in danger for a moment. Stars appeared in his eyes when he looked at the flying chair. Big shout out to Sigui. The chair came 5 meters in front of Kizaru. Then slowly finally landed on the ground. Ron tapped his fingers on the armrest regularly. There was no expression on his face, no emotion or anger can be seen. But just like that, Tuan made Kizaru feel even more scared. Learn about Ron today. He found that the more angry Ron was, the more expressionless and calm he became. Just like now, Perusalino, as soon as Ron called his name, Kizaru knew that something was not simple. Ron had always called himself Kizaru before, never called by name directly. This is just like when you made a mistake as a child and your parents suddenly called you by your name, you would definitely be beaten. Huang Yuan's complexion changed drastically, Inspector General. Everything I said is true. I really have nothing to do with the Revolutionary Army. Dolog was also a Marine when he was young, so he served in the same army, and that's how we met. Not only do I know him, but that guy Akainu and Dorag also know each other. We are all first-class recruits. Later Dorag left Marine. Many Marine veterans can attest to this. Since then, I have never had any contact with Dorag. Kizaru explained a lot of things in one breath. He told everything about how he met Dorag and what their relationship was like. It turns out that Dorag was also a Marine before. But he later left for unknown reasons. Are you an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army? Unexpectedly, Ron asked suddenly. Kizaru was stunned. Isn't this too direct a question? Advertisement? I'm not, I didn't. I am definitely not an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army. I swear. Kizaru immediately expressed his stance. There must be no hesitation at this time, if not. Once you are suspected, it will be really miserable. Perusalino, you should know that I hate people lying to me. Sometimes the consequences of lying are much worse than admitting directly. So I'm asking you again, are you an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army 507? Ron's words emphasized his tone. It makes people shudder to hear it. This moment, the surrounding Marine soldiers finally heard clearly what Ron was asking. I couldn't help but take a breath. Is Kizaru Admiral an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army? Isn't it? If this is the case, the Inspector General will kill him, right? After all, the Revolutionary Army is the #1 enemy of the world government. The gangsters of the Revolutionary Army are not good people. They encourage other countries to break away from the world and conquer the world every day, causing other countries to fall into turmoil, but they stand by and watch. Yes, those countries that listened to his words and broke away from the world government later suffered even worse. And Kizaru didn't dare to neglect at this moment. He immediately said, I am definitely not an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army. If we want to conquer the Revolutionary Army, I will be the first to rush forward and arrest Dorag. Kizaru knew that if he didn't take a stand, he might not have a chance. Ron nodded and said, prove yourself. Kizaru's mind was also spinning very quickly. In the spirit of a dead Taoist friend but a poor Taoist. He immediately pointed to Bartholomew Kuma and said, he is a cadre of the Revolutionary Army, and the reason why he became a Shichibukai is to detect information from Marine and world government. And he just said in my ear that he wanted to shoot Luffy and fly him to the headquarters. So I think it's necessary to kill him directly. Ron was a little surprised to hear that Shang was going to take Luffy to the Revolutionary Army headquarters. Ron didn't speak directly, just nodded. Kizaru understood immediately. It's time to prove your innocence. Go to hell, Bartholomew Kuma. You, a guy like you, almost killed me by talking too much just now. You deserve it. 8-foot Magatama. Kizaru's did not hesitate and directly attacked Bartholomew Kuma. 080. Kizaru leads troops to attack the Revolutionary Army headquarters and capture Luffy and his son. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement Bartholomew Kuma was stunned. He didn't expect that Kizaru would suddenly change so much. He actually started to take action, although he is relatively strong in the 7 seas. But it's impossible to defeat Kizaru. At this moment, Kizaru wants to prove his innocence. That really doesn't hold anything back at all, even more vicious than when dealing with Rayleigh. After all, Ron is here watching. What if I don't work hard enough or strike hard enough, and Ron thinks he's letting me off on purpose? So, at this time, you must definitely show 200% of your strength. Showing his fight to the death with the Revolutionary Army. Determination to fight the evil forces to the end. Ever since the beginning of the war, Kizaru has used all his ultimate moves. The 8-foot Chong Magatama sweeps the floor. Bartholomew Kuma can only dodge back and forth. There is simply no way to fight back, although he moves very fast. But Kizaru's movement speed is not slow either. The two of them can be said to be the two fastest people in the entire pirate world. Various flash attacks. Although Bartholomew Kuma is not as strong as Rayleigh, this guy moves too fast. It's really not easy to catch. This made Kizaru very angry. Because he felt Ron's eyes looking at him from behind were getting colder and colder. If we don't take advantage of this moment to capture the other party, then he will probably get beaten. Think of this. Kizaru uses all his strength, attacked desperately. The attacks became more and more rapid. Suddenly the air below was filled with smoke and dust. Sand and stones were flying. The wind was blowing hard. It's like a Shira field in the human world. Bartholomew Kuma was never Kizaru's opponent. At this moment, I met Kizaru, who was furious again. Being able to hold on for such a long time is already impressive. After a while, the smoke from the field cleared. Kizaru stomps Bartholomew Kuma. The battle is over. At this moment, Bartholomew Kuma had multiple injuries all over his body. There was electricity flowing everywhere. Now half of his body has basically been transformed into a robot. But Kizaru was more handsome. There was no damage at all. Put your hands in your pockets. With a crooked mouth and a proud look on his face, he stepped on Bartholomew Kuma. Then looked at Ron. The meaning of that look couldn't be more obvious. What do you think? I killed the Revolutionary Army people, right? Advertisement, is this enough to prove that I am not an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army? Now you have no reason to doubt me, right? But at this moment, Kizaru suddenly noticed that Ron's expression was not very good. I couldn't help but feel a little confused. How's this going? I have already killed the Revolutionary Army. Doesn't he still believe me? Wrong. Just at this time, Kizaru suddenly discovered something. Luffy is gone. Kizaru looked around and didn't find Luffy's location. This time, Kizaru was completely panicked. I can't help but look at Bartholomew Kuma underfoot. Said incredulously. Where's Luffy? Bartholomew Kuma said calmly. Just now, when the smoke from your attack was relatively strong, I took him away. You don't even want to know where he went. The purpose of Bartholomew Kuma coming here is to take Luffy away. So when he went to war with Kizaru, he knew he couldn't win. So he took advantage of the fact that there was dust all around and he couldn't see the direction. Came to Luffy's side secretly. The meatball fruit ability is used. Bounce Luffy away. At this moment, Luffy is already on his way to the Revolutionary Army headquarters. Kizaru was dumbfounded. He just tried so hard to prove that he was not from the Revolutionary Army. So the attack got a little carried away. I forgot about Luffy for a while. This is terrible. Luffy was rescued. Doesn't this confirm his reputation as an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army? What if the Inspector General thinks he let him go on purpose? Why is I so unlucky? What should this do? I don't know where Luffy flew to. Where can I go to catch him? There's not even a chance for me to make amends. How should I explain to the Inspector General at this moment? Kizaru was just congratulating himself for proving that he had nothing to do with the Revolutionary Army. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, due to a mistake, the most important person in this battle was let go. And this man is also the son of the leader of the Revolutionary Army. If you let him go, how can you get away with it? And this time, Ron finally spoke, Perusalino. Where is the person I want? Kizaru was shocked and didn't know how to reply. I really didn't mean to let him go. You have to believe me. Ron didn't even say anything. He stood up directly from the chair. Then slowly walked towards Kizaru. Then he patted Kizaru on the shoulder. Then Dwang's punch. It hit Kizaru directly in the stomach. Advertisement poof. Kizaru spit out a mouthful of blood. Ron's movements were slow enough that anyone could dodge the punch. If Kizaru wanted to avoid it, it would be easy, but how dare Kizaru hide? After you dodge, you will definitely be beaten harder. Kizaru already has experience. At this moment, my stomach felt extremely crampy. I bent down and finally stood up. Seeing this scene, the surrounding marine soldiers couldn't help but cover their eyes. They could even feel Kizaru's pain. Kizaru Admiral was beaten again. Isn't it too miserable? The only one who can beat Marine Admiral so freely is the Inspector General, right? Ron sat back in the chair. Then he said slowly. If your guess is correct, you photographed Luffy at the Revolutionary Army headquarters, right? You think it's very safe there, right? Bartholomew Kuma didn't reply. Anyway, his mission is accomplished, and he will soon be transformed into a war machine without memory. So it doesn't matter if you get caught. However, what Ron said next made Bartholomew Kuma extremely panicked. When I knew you were going to beat Luffy back to the Revolutionary Army headquarters, I was waiting for you to do it. I know this guy Kizaru will definitely not be able to stand Luffy, and you will definitely succeed. But that's exactly what I want. I'm worried that I can't find the location of the Revolutionary Army headquarters. Thank you for showing me the way. Ron suddenly took out a compass at this moment. The compass needle quickly pointed in Luffy's direction. Before that, Ron also wanted to deal with the Revolutionary Army, but couldn't find their location. Because the leaders of the Revolutionary Army that Luffy knows are not at the headquarters now. The positions of Dorag, Sabo and others are always changing. Obviously, he was on a mission and not at the headquarters. So there is no way to point out the specific location of the headquarters through a compass. But now Luffy happens to be flying to the Revolutionary Army headquarters. So, as long as you follow him, you will definitely find the headquarters. This was Ron's plan from the beginning. He wants to take down the Revolutionary Army headquarters in one fell swoop. At this time, Kizaru looked confused. It turns out that this was all the Inspector General's plan. You made Luffy fly on purpose, so why did you beat me up? Ron said calmly. Do I still need a reason to hit you? Now I give you a chance to atone for your sins. Take the compass, follow this direction, and lead the people to destroy the Revolutionary Army headquarters one by one. Kizaru was stunned. He didn't expect that Ron would dare to do such a big thing just a few days after taking office. Is there a problem? Ron's tone became a little more serious. Kizaru nodded repeatedly and then said, no problem, I will definitely catch them all. Okay, let's go. Ron waved his hand. Then, Kizaru immediately led Momomaru's troops and prepared to board the warship. Advertisement followed the direction indicated by the compass. Attack the Revolutionary Army headquarters. However, at this time, Kizaru suddenly discovered that a supernova was preparing to escape by boat. It is Drake in the form of the L Source, an ancient species of zone. That's okay. Can I still let you run away in front of me? Kizaru has just been taught a lesson. Don't allow yourself to make this mistake again. 8-foot mirror. Arriving in front of Drake in an instant. A direct light speed kick. Kick him to the ground. HMPH, still want to run? I will not let any pirate escape from me again. Kizaru looked at Ron with an expression asking for credit. Inspector General, from now on, no pirate can escape under my nose. Kizaru's expression was extremely serious. Speak with righteousness. He thought Ron would be pleased to praise him, but I never expected it. Ron quickly disappeared. Next moment, Kizaru felt an impact on his body. Then there was a bang. It's a long way to fly directly. No money is good. Kizaru was really confused. Why are you getting beaten up here? He clearly did not let the pirate escape this time and captured him in time. Shouldn't it be praised? You can beat one of your own even harder than a pirate? Can't you see that Drake is one of our own? Ron said coldly. Kizaru looked confused. Drake is one of our own? Kizaru's whole body collapsed. I finally want to express myself. To make amends for letting Luffy run away, did not think of. Attack a random supernova, but it's still one of your own? Very helpless, Kizaru took several marine fleets. Then follow the direction indicated by the compass. Left here, and Ron ordered all the soldiers to pour the whole thing against the glass and check again. After confirming that there were no pirates here, he ordered the warship to return to the marine headquarters. This time, a total of nearly 10,000 pirates, large and small, were captured. All of the supernovas were captured except Luffy. Also captured were Rayleigh, Bartholomew Kuma the Fox. Summit War execution personnel plus one the pirates of Sabaody archipelago were completely cleared. Calculate the time. It's time to execute Ace. Both Garp and Kizaru have been educated to the point of being educated. It's time to see how they fare in Summit War. Go back to Marine headquarters and prepare to declare war on Whitebeard. Ron ordered the class to return to the court. 081. Ace is publicly executed, and the battle for the top officially begins. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement when Ron and others returned to the seaside headquarters. Sengoku was already stunned. Row after row, they unloaded people from the warship. Shocked and speechless. Marine has never caught so many pirates in one trip. This is really an exaggeration. Normally when Marine goes out to catch pirates, at most they send out a lot of warships and then catch a dozen or so. There is a serious imbalance between input and output. But there's no way around it. After all, pirates are so difficult to catch. Every time a warship is dispatched to catch 10 pirates, it is considered a bumper harvest. And now, Sengoku looked at the nearly 10,000 pirates disembarking from these 5 warships. I couldn't close my jaw in surprise. He couldn't even figure out how to pretend. How can these 5 warships carry so many people? However, he could still understand that the pirates who had just come down were all unknown little pirates. Even if they are caught, they won't be released for long. But then, one by one, heavyweights appear. Looking at Sengoku, he took a breath. Staff officer he stood next to Sengoku and said incredulously. Isn't this a supernova? They were all captured? Isn't this shot too efficient? It's not like something Kizaru can do. After all, Commander he knew that Ron was there to supervise the battle, and the main contributor must be Admiral Kizaru. But judging from her knowledge of Kizaru, if this guy can capture just one of them, it will be a big deal. How is it possible that they are all in trouble? This doesn't fit Kizaru's character. Sengoku also shook his head. Could it be that, because the Inspector General was supervising the battle, that kid Kizaru worked extra hard this time? Staff officer he shook his head and said, even if you were watching him, he wouldn't work so hard. Sengoku nodded. That's right, even if I personally watched him from behind, he wouldn't be able to do this in 080 weeks. It seems that the Inspector General is quite capable. Wait a minute, look who that is. Staff officer he pointed at a person in disbelief and said in shock. Pluton Rayleigh, we actually caught him too. That guy turned out to be in the Sabaody archipelago all along. This is really an unexpected surprise. Sengoku took a deep breath. They are old rivals, but even so, he and Kajian have never caught Rayleigh in all these years. Unexpectedly, after so many years, advertisement Kizaru was actually caught. With the Inspector General supervising the operations from behind, is that guy Kizaru so efficient? Isn't this too incredible? Sengoku and Commander Suru looked at each other, shocked and speechless. Who would have thought that sending out a Marine Admiral would capture not only 10,000 pirates, but also more than a dozen supernovas worth hundreds of millions, and the most incredible thing was Pluton Rayleigh. Wait a minute, isn't that Shichibukai Bartholomew Kuma? This one is one of our own, why should we capture him? No, where's Kizaru? Why haven't you seen him? At this time, Sengoku suddenly reacted. As the leader this time, Kizaru did not return with the team. This is really incredible. Where did the people go? Inspector General, where is Kizaru? Sengoku couldn't help but ask. Didn't he die in battle? After all, we went out and arrested so many people this time, including Pluton Rayleigh and Shichibukai Bartholomew Kuma. Did they die in the battle between the forces? So I didn't come back. It's no wonder that Sengoku is so imaginative, because it's a bit unbelievable that Kizaru has brought back so many people. BFEG, however, Ron patted Sengoku on the shoulder and said in a very relaxed tone. Don't worry about him, I sent him out to attack the Revolutionary Army headquarters. What? Sengoku didn't react for a moment. Attack the Revolutionary Army headquarters. Why did this involve the Revolutionary Army again? And, isn't this too casual? Do you think that the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army is a gang of bandits? If you want to attack, just attack. Marine hasn't discovered his exact location in all these years. How can I attack if I can't find it? This is such a big thing. Should first, Marine Yuan A, be informed? Sengoku was a little unhappy. Less than half a month after the Inspector General came to Marine headquarters, he had already dismissed 2 Marine admirals. And all without their own consent. No need. He thought he would be waiting for an explanation from Ron, but after the other person dropped these 4 words. Then he turned and left, then he stopped and said. Gather all the senior officials together and have a meeting in 10 minutes. Sengoku. Sengoku had a dark look on his face. First I'm a Marine Marshal, and now I have become your microphone, right? 10 minutes later, in the Marine headquarters conference room. All Marine senior executives sit here. Sengoku, Commander Suru, Akainu, Momosagi, T-Dolphin, and several Vice Admirals, etc. They are currently the top combat capabilities of Marine. Just without Aokiji, Kizaru and Garp. Ron knocked on the blackboard. Then he said straight to the point, advertisement. In an hour, the news of Ace's execution will be announced. The execution is scheduled for 10 days. Ron directly announced a big news. It caused a commotion below. They all started discussing with each other. Momosagi raised his hand and said, isn't 10 days too short and not enough for us to prepare? At present, our military expenditure is too short and we don't have enough fortifications and weapons. Contact the 5 elders and ask them, in my name, to release the required military expenditure immediately. No, issue it 10 times the amount required. Don't be miserable, soldiers, your salary will be 10 times this month. Any other questions? Ron was gesturing for others to speak. Momosagi was stunned. Is this solved? It's too arrogant. Are we ready to go to war with Whitebeard outright? Akainu looked a little excited. Yes, Queen Tien was the moment when the Whitebeard pirates were completely destroyed. Ron said very seriously, through this battle, Marine's reputation will be completely established. Our goal is to eliminate the 4 emperors, and Whitebeard is the first person we will attack. Beep, the whole place was in an uproar. None of them thought the Marine would have to deal with the 4 emperors so soon. Is this Inspector General too radical? In addition, it is announced that Rayleigh, Bartholomew Kuma, and Supernova will be executed together with Ace. Then, Ron announced another bombshell, as soon as this statement came out. Even Sengoku felt incredible. Are you crazy this time? One-time provocation. Whitebeard alone is not enough? What if this attracts all Roger's crew members? Meeting dismissed. After saying these 2 words, the great changes in the entire pirate world have officially begun. Early the next morning, the news spread all over the world. Countless big shots at sea were shocked when they saw the news. They never expected the Marine would make such a big move. Especially Whitebeard. At this moment, he was holding the newspaper in his hand angrily. His face had darkened. They took Ace. No wonder I haven't contacted Ace during this time. How dare you execute him in public? Are you provoking me? No one had ever dared to challenge Whitebeard so much. This is a naked declaration of war on Whitebeard. The captain of the first team, Phoenix Marco, frowned and said, Dad, we must rescue Ace. Advertisement, goo la 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 la. Of course, Marine dares to do this, he really doesn't take us seriously. Do they think we, the Whitebeard pirates, can be dealt with casually? Whitebeard swung his sword. In an instant, the entire sky split into 2 halves. The originally calm sea suddenly became rough, rolling up huge waves hundreds of meters high. The dark clouds in the sky are rolling to both sides. This knife, with a casual wave, let the whole world change color and the sea churn. This is the strongest man in the entire sea. Marco, go notify all pirate groups under your command. Gather in 3 days, attack the Horse Marine Fort. The next day, the 5 elders approved the military expenditure. I have to say, this efficiency is really fast. Normally, when Marine applies for military funding, it takes as little as 10 days and a half, and as long as 3 to 5 months. And this time, it was approved the next day, and the funds arrive immediately. Momosagi has been responsible for military procurement and personnel expenses in the Marine Corps. When she got the news, I was so shocked that I was speechless. Does this Inspector General have so much power? Even the 5 elders have to listen to him? Just when Momosagi looked at Ron in a daze, Ron suddenly came over, patted her shoulder and said, Remember, you must not delay the wages of soldiers, they must be paid on time, and the various allowances must not be less. We should also use the best weapons and equipment and don't care about money. Momosagi instantly felt like worshipping a rich man. In the past, Marine soldiers were often in arrears with their wages and could not make a living for several months. After all, Marines' money is also funded by world government funding. In the past, the allocation efficiency of world government was very slow. This also made Momoshiki very angry, but there was nothing she could do. Unexpectedly, the Inspector General solved this shortcoming as soon as he came. Host solved Marines' wage arrears and improved Marines' financial system, giving Zahn no worries. Improved morale, stabilized military morale, and obtained a bronze treasure chest. Ron didn't expect that he could also get a bronze treasure chest this way. It seems that the previous Marine was really full of loopholes. Ron will never allow soldiers who risk their lives to fight without even receiving wages. And at the same time, Admiral Aokiji is finally back. And he didn't leave empty-handed. I saw him sitting on a dark hockey ship, which was as big as 10 warships. The cannon on it is as thick as a warship. It was the ancient weapon Pluton. 082. Garp returns to the team. Ron inspects before the war. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement since Aokiji separated from Ron in the Seven Waters capital. He was ordered by Ron to find the Pluton, as expected. Under the guidance of the feng shui compass, I really found the Pluton hidden in Alabasta. I have to say, this ship is really super handsome. The entire hull is as if it were covered with armament hockey. Dark as ink. It looks extremely sturdy. The whole barrel of the cannon in the middle is as thick as a warship. This shot goes down. It is easy to destroy a country. Now, the Pluton is docked at the port of the Marine headquarters. All the Marine soldiers were dumbfounded. Where have you ever seen such a big ship? It was 10 times larger than their warships and still more. It's like walking on a mountain on the sea. The hull is brand new. It looks nothing like the ancient weapon from 800 years ago. This is enough to prove that the material used in this ship is extremely rare, not only extremely strong, but also resistant to the erosion of time. Like gold. This is the legendary Pluton. It is said that one shot can wipe out an entire country. It's so scary. It's the first time I feel so small. It is said that this was found by the Inspector General. Isn't this too exaggerated? In other words, from now on, this Pluton belongs to our Inspector General? In an instant, it spread throughout Marine. Even Sengoku couldn't help but stop and watch. I didn't expect that such a thing really existed, and that the Inspector General could even get it. With this ship, even if Whitebeard comes, we can hit him with one shot. Akainu carefully touched the dark hull and suddenly felt weak, then he couldn't help but exclaimed, Marshal Sengoku, it is made of something similar to sea stone. See, now, Aokiji also came to Ron's office, reported the details of this line of work to Ron. Ron nodded with satisfaction. You did a good job this time. Go down and prepare for some war. Whitebeard should be here in the next few days. Aokiji leaves Ron's office. He never expected the Marine would undergo earth-shaking changes just a few days after he left. He actually had to fight Whitebeard as soon as he came back. This Inspector General is really resolute and unconventional. Subsequently, Ron went down to inspect the Pluton himself and found that this ship was indeed different. No wonder Bingshan and the others couldn't make it even if they got the design drawings. Advertisement. This is no longer a question of design drawings. It is the material of shipbuilding. It can't be done with today's technology. The entire ship is made of the same material as the Black Knife. Isn't this too scary? However, Ron is still very satisfied with the shape of the boat. Handsome and hockey. It just happens to be my own car, very suitable. At this time, Stussy came to report. Sir Ron, Vegapunk requests to meet. Oh, that's great. I was just about to go find him. Ron nodded. He motioned to invite him over. After a while, a scientist in a white coat walked in. It is the most talented scientist in the pirate world, Vegapunk. Vegapunk asked straight to the point as soon as he arrived. Lord Inspector General, can I see your special combat uniform? Vegapunk doesn't know what it is at all, so he can only call him a combat uniform for the time being. Because of this thing, his old buddy is also doing it. When their experimental team was still there, among them is a man named Vinsmoke Changji, who is doing this thing. He is also working on combat uniforms, however, it is obviously not as powerful as the Inspector General. Look at Vegapunk's curious eyes. Ron smiled and said. What's wrong with that? You see. Ron took off the small box from his chest and threw it into Garpunk's hands. Vegapunk studied for a long time. While scratching his head, he sighed. That's awesome. At least I can't study it in 200 years. What kind of technology is this? I never thought that I would encounter something that makes me so enthusiastic in my lifetime. It's been too long since I've had anything to ignite my passion. Vegapunk held the nanosuit and looked at it with fascination. Have to say, scientists' obsession with the unknown is truly unimaginable. Can you make it? Ron asked calmly. No, this thing is too complicated. I don't even know what materials it is made of. Vegapunk sighed. I have the drawings here. Take a look at it carefully and see if you can copy the things according to the drawings and make shit. Really? Are there really blueprints? Advertisement? If this is the case, I, Vegapunk, would like to become your disciple. As a scientist, he knew how secret this kind of drawing was. But the Inspector General in front of him was able to give him to him without reservation. Such kindness. They are simply masters and disciples. Only a master would pass on this precious thing to his apprentice without reservation. Now, crazy Vegapunk actually knelt down to Ron on the spot and became his disciple. This move also made Ron jump. What are you doing? Master Inspector General, this kind of technology is completely beyond my control. If you teach it to me, you will be my master. No matter what, I will worship you as my teacher. Perhaps it is due to scientists' persistence and obsession with unknown things. Ron didn't stop him either, just accept an apprentice. If he could mass-produce this kind of thing, just give it to these Marine soldiers. Let them wear combat uniforms with their abilities. Isn't this more powerful than Germa 66? Although these mass-produced nanosuits are castrated versions. It cannot be restored indefinitely, however, after wearing these marine soldiers, they can directly increase their combat effectiveness. Vegapunk took a dozen blueprints given to him by Ron and left here excitedly. Walking and dancing along the way, you can see how good the mood is. This unusual behavior made Sengoku and others feel a little surprised when they saw it. How did this old guy get into the office of the Inspector General and end up like this when he came out? It's so weird. Normally, Vegapunk is stern and has an indifferent expression on everyone he looks at. Why are you so excited today? Later, when Sengoku asked, he found out that Vegapunk had actually defeated the Inspector General as his mentor. This once again shocked Sengoku beyond words. Of course he knows, what kind of person is Vegapunk? As the first scientist, his IQ is naturally unparalleled. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, so he always looks arrogant. No one looks down on it, he felt that no one in the world was as smart as him. However, such a person once worshipped the Inspector General as his disciple. It's incredible. What kind of skills does this Inspector General have? Why is it so confusing? It has only been less than half a month since I came to the Marine headquarters. It seems like it can win people's hearts. Not only did the two admirals, Aokiji and Kizaru, obey him. He can even get Vegapunk to become his disciple. Advertisement. Even Vice Admiral Garp, who was fired by him, was grateful to Ron for waking him up. Sengoku couldn't help but become curious about Ron. In the afternoon, Ron went to inspect the Marine soldiers who were practicing the rock-smashing fist. After this period of training, most of them have mastered 30% of the flowing water-shattering fist. In other words, it has reached the third level of skill. I have to say, this is amazing. Moreover, Ron has popularized the flowing water-shattering fist, and in addition to his personal guards, other people are also training along with him. OCP-9's talent is relatively high, and it has reached more than 80% during this period. Their strength has increased several times. Ron has no way of estimating exactly how strong the entire Marine's combat effectiveness is now. Sengoku watched the recruit training and couldn't help but take a breath. The strength of these guys is growing every day at a speed visible to the naked eye. Because there is going to be a head-on battle with Whitebeard soon. Ron tried to improve Marine's combat effectiveness as much as possible. So first inspect inside Marine every day. After learning about Marine's training progress, Ron went to inspect the construction of fortifications. Under the leadership of Momoshage, Ron also gave some suggestions on construction. The progress is okay. Ron nodded in approval. Inspector General, because of the funding you applied for last time, Marine now has a large budget, so there is no need to worry about money when building it, so the progress is much faster. Momoshage said immediately. Momoshage, the financial steward of the Marine headquarters, is naturally extremely grateful for Ron's full financial support for them. Any actions taken by Marine before were too limited. All budgets are based on saving one province after another, and you will be as frugal as possible. However, since the arrival of Ron, the Inspector General, world government has been very prompt every time Marine is given a budget. There are still 2 days left before Ace is executed. Whitebeard must be coming soon. Ron muttered, after some inspections by him, first found that Marine was well prepared. And at this time, Garp also returned to the team. Ever since I was taught a lesson by Ron last time. Garp deeply realized his mistake, and visited the Marines who were injured by Luffy. After visiting all the way, his feelings deepened. He also knew that as a pirate, even if it was his own grandson, he should not let him go. This is irresponsible for the lives of all Marines. As soon as Garp returned to the headquarters, he came directly to see Ron. Inspector General, Garp, please return to the team. Have you thought everything through? Ron said calmly. I have thought clearly. When I meet Luffy again, I will not show mercy. Garp said corpse very seriously. 083. 2 actors show off their acting skills. Kizaru and Garp team up to release water. Previous chapter, next chapter advertisement early the next morning. Kizaru, who went out on a mission, also came back. But his mission was not as smooth as Aokiji's. The attack on the Revolutionary Army headquarters was successful, but the key figures were not captured. Drago, Luffy, and Sabo didn't catch any of them. This also led to Kizaru not daring to see Ron immediately when he came back. What are you doing here? Akainu saw Kizaru standing in the corridor and frowned and asked. Kizaru sighed and said, my mission failed. If you fail, just fail. Which mission have you ever succeeded in? Akainu said angrily, you don't understand, this time is different. Kizaru has a somewhat decisive flavor, stepped into Ron's office. Not long after, 227, came a heart-rending scream. Akainu felt chills running down his spine when he heard the voice at the door. I'm obviously a lava fruit, why'd I feel so cold all over? It's better to run away quickly. Boom, after a moment, Kizaru was thrown out by Ron. Although Kizaru did not catch Luffy this time, but Ron wasn't worried. Because he knew that Luffy would definitely come to Marinfondo. And this time, Chi may bring Dorag with him, it will be interesting then. Garp's grandson, 3rd generation, are all on the battlefield. Advertisement. It just depends on whether Garp can take action against his son and grandson. Ron was always worried about Garp. He didn't believe that this guy could change his life so easily and change his ways. Because Ron knew very well how much Garp loved his grandson. This kind of family affection cannot be easily replaced by justice. After all, the Marine soldier is just an outsider, but his grandson is his own grandson. If you had to choose between the two, what would you choose? Ron didn't believe Garp would choose justice. Hey, Sakazuki, don't leave, please help me. Kizaru said speechlessly, however, Akainu ignored him. Just at this moment, Garp passed by, saw Kizaru. Then he helped him up, the two chatted while walking. Mr. Garp, I was ordered to arrest your grandson before, you don't mind, do you? Kizaru reluctantly stood up and coughed twice, of course I don't mind. He is a pirate, we are Marine, and it is natural for Marine to catch pirates. Garp said righteously. Kizaru frowned. I looked around and found no one. Then he whispered, Vice Admiral Garp, there are only 2 of us here now, don't worry. Hearing this, Garp suddenly said, what do you mean you guys? Kizaru came closer to Garp and whispered, if I guess correctly, Drago and Luffy will come to rescue Ace this time. At that time we should think about how to relieve Luffy. After all, now that the Inspector General is here, it will definitely be much more difficult to release the water. Advertisement, it's better if we think about it in advance. Upon hearing this, Garp immediately said angrily, if they dare to come to this unworthy descendant of me, they will be brought under my iron fist. Kizaru was confused. Why is this old man still acting? There's no one around here. Garp, stop pretending, we are on the same team. Do you think I don't know why you chose this time to come back? Aren't you afraid that your precious grandson will die in the Summit War? Otherwise, how could it be such a coincidence that you returned to the team the day before Summit War? Kizaru said mysteriously. Hear it here. Garp was shocked and his eyes were a little dodgy. Don't talk nonsense. I'm just back to capture Luffy. This guy is not my grandson, he is just a pirate. I came back this time to teach him a lesson myself. Kizaru smiled, touched his chin and said with a crooked mouth, looking very much in need of a beating. Okay, you think I didn't see it? You have been suspended by the Inspector General. There is no need to come to the Summit War. You choose to come back at this time. Isn't it obvious what this means? You were just worried about your grandson. After all, with Luffy's strength, it is too early to appear in Summit War. So you came back to protect him, right? Speaking of which. Garp took a deep breath, however, there was no admission or denial. His expression was still serious. Kizaru couldn't help but laugh. Because I have some special reasons, so I don't want Luffy to die. To some extent, our goals are aligned, so the 2 of us have to work together. The Inspector General is so smart, he can spot any attempt to make things worse. Advertisement, and he's always staring at us, so we can't make it too obvious, otherwise, you and I will be miserable. I tried it before in Sabaody Archipelago. So this time we have to be more subtle. Kizaru thought about how badly he was beaten by Ron in Sabaody Archipelago. I couldn't help but shudder. Sure enough, he didn't tell Ron completely the truth that time in Sabaody Archipelago. In fact, he went to Sabaody Archipelago that time just to save Luffy. I just didn't expect Ron to see it, so I had no choice but to pretend to capture Luffy first. And in the end it was he who intentionally let Luffy go. Otherwise, with his strength, how could he let Bartholomew Kuma slap Luffy away in front of him? It's just that Kizaru didn't expect that the devil will be 1 foot taller and the one who will be taller will be 1 foot taller. Ron was smarter than him. The purpose of that 1.6 gang was to use Luffy to find out the location of the Revolutionary Army headquarters. This time, the Revolutionary Army headquarters was captured and almost half of its troops were lost. This headquarters has not been discovered for more than 20 years. Unexpectedly, Ron used a little trick and captured it directly. The remaining revolutionary troops could only change their headquarters. At this time, Garp suddenly asked, you were sent by the Inspector General to test me, right? Kizaru touched his chin and said, Vice Admiral Garp, how is it possible? You have to believe me. Okay, let's cooperate, Garp nodded and said. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared behind them. Then asked, what are you 2 going to do together? 084. When Marine was in a meeting, Ming's legs were placed on the table and he got a discount on his legs if he took them out. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement now, Garp and Kizaru have something on their mind. What they are discussing cannot be known to others. Especially the Inspector General, otherwise both of them know what will happen to them. After all, both of them had experienced Ron's iron fist firsthand. So, he was afraid that his plot would be discovered by Ron. The 2 of them were so focused on plotting just now that they didn't pay attention to their surroundings for a moment. So a voice suddenly appeared behind them and tapped them on the shoulders. Garp and Kizaru were immediately frightened, even his face changed. Especially Kizaru, who instinctively felt pain in his chest and waist. He has already been beaten for PTSD, so whenever he does something wrong, he can imagine the Inspector General beating him. The body will experience pain unconsciously, it's over. Couldn't it be the Inspector General? If so, didn't he hear what he just said? Oops, isn't this the end? Kizaru was very nervous at the moment. In the panic, you didn't even know who the person behind it was for a moment. Fortunately, Garp has experience. At first, like Kizaru, I was a little panicked. But it only took a second to calm down, look back calmly. I found out that the person coming was not Ron, that I couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief in my heart. However, he still acted very calmly and said, Kuzan, it turns out it's you. Aokiji said with some confusion, oh, who else could I be? Can't you 2 even recognize my voice? Ha ha ha, how is that possible? First just left Marine for too long and haven't seen you for a long time. I heard that you recently found the platoon number 15. It's really amazing. Garp laughed and immediately changed the subject. Aokiji waved his hand and said ashamedly, it's not like I found it. I just ran an errand to get it back for the Inspector General. It was the location provided to me by the Inspector General. Then Garp and Aokiji started chatting without a word. Kizaru, who was watching on the sidelines, was impressed. I couldn't help but touch my chin and thought, as expected of an old actor, he was just calmer than me. He easily changed the subject and eased the tense atmosphere. It seems that I still have a lot to learn from him. By the way, you actually changed the topic. While chatting, Aokiji's face suddenly changed and he said seriously. See, as soon as this statement came out, instantly, Garp and Kizaru's faces became nervous again. The 2 couldn't help but look at each other. Could it be that Aokiji heard the 2 of them talking just now? When I think of this, advertisement both of them felt a chill go down their backs. Kizaru didn't know what to say for a moment. Garp, an old man, was relatively calm and said immediately. Where did I change the subject? Hey, let's get down to business. Sengoku informed me of a meeting. I'm here to call you. I was interrupted by Mr. Garp, and I almost forgot about the real thing. Let's go quickly, it will start soon. Everyone must be present for this pre-war meeting, including Shichibukai and the others. It turns out they asked us to have a meeting. Hear it here. Kizaru and Garp couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. A hanging heart finally let go. The two of them thought Aokiji heard them plotting. Since it's a meeting, then go quickly, I don't dare to be late. Otherwise, I'll get beaten again. Kizaru tilted his chin and immediately ran towards the conference room. It seems that I dislike running too slowly, 8-foot mirror. Kizaru moves directly with his abilities, brush. A flash of yellow light flashed, and Kizaru disappeared. Aokiji looked confused. When did this guy become so active? Aokiji said lazily. Garp took a deep breath and understood deeply. If you have been supervised by the Inspector General, you will understand. Aokiji looked confused. As a colleague, he knew Perusalino very well. This guy is always late for every meeting, and sometimes he even wanders in after half an hour. Thank God for arriving on time. It is even more impossible to go there in advance. Therefore, seeing Kizaru like this, Aokiji couldn't help but feel a little confused. What on earth has this guy been through? Such a big change can happen. Marine Headquarters Conference Hall. This is Ron's third meeting at Marine Headquarters. This is different from the previous 2 times. This time it was not just Marine executives who came to the meeting. And Shichibukai. They were recruited to assist Marine in dealing with Whitebeard. This is their obligation. It's just that Shichibukai was killed and arrested by Ron. There are only 3 people present now. They are the world's best swordsman, Mahawk. The most beautiful woman in the world, Empress Boa Hancock. Intermediary liaison in the underworld, formerly Celestial Dragons Doflamingo. 3 people sat on one side. The remaining Marine executives sat opposite. They are Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji, Akainu, Kizaru, Commander Crane, Momosagi Vice Admiral, and T-Dolphin Vice Admiral. There were also some other Marine senior executives sitting in the audience. These are all important personnel for the next Summit War. Advertisement: they are all the main combat power this time. So, Sengoku temporarily called everyone together. Prepare for tomorrow's Summit War, if nothing else happens. Tomorrow Whitebeard will play Marineford. By then this unprecedented war is about to break out. So some things must be explained in advance. After all, this is also Marine's first large-scale collaboration with Shichibukai. After seeing everyone arrive, Ron knocked on the blackboard. Then he pointed to Sengoku in the audience and said, Sengoku, you will chair this meeting. Sengoku was flattered below. Was suddenly called upon. I couldn't help but be stunned. Ever since Ron came to Marine Headquarters, he had become accustomed to having Ron chair meetings. This guy often oversteps his authority. As a result, Marshal Marine himself has become a decoration in his microphone. Every time Ron talks about a meeting, he is responsible for delivering it. He thought the Inspector General had forgotten about him as Marine Marshal. Unexpectedly, he thought of himself this time. What are you still doing? Hurry up. Come here to preside over the meeting. He's so chatty, he doesn't look like Marshal Marine at all. Ron saw Sengoku standing there stunned. Somewhat unhappy, he frowned and said, This is coming. Only then did Sengoku react. Just like the student who was suddenly called on. Hurry onto the stage. Ron came down from the stage and took Sengoku's position. This scene. Everyone present was shocked. Kizaru said as Garp stood aside in disbelief. I have just left Marine Headquarters for half a month. Has Marine Marshal changed his position? Who is the Marshal among them? Kizaru twisted his mouth. It turns out we still have a Marshal. These 3 Shichibukai were even more shocked. Of course they've heard of the Inspector General. But, it was also the first time to meet a real person. They never expected that the Inspector General's power in Marine would be compromised. Even if Marshal Sengoku holds a meeting, he has to ask for instructions. Moreover, the Marshal, as the Supreme Leader of Marine, is actually called upon by an Inspector General. It's really incredible. Interesting. Doflamingo watched this scene with interest. At the same time, he put his feet on the table, very arrogant. Advertisement: when Kizaru saw this scene, he couldn't help but take a deep breath and suddenly remembered himself from the previous meeting. At that time, I was also so bohemian, but after being taught a lesson by Ron several times. He now sits there sternly every time he has a meeting. Don't dare to make any unnecessary moves at all. This Shichibukai is still too young. He even dared to put his feet on the table in front of the Inspector General. It seemed that he was tired of living. Well, Kizaru couldn't help but shook his head. It seems that Doflamingo's fate has been foreseen. Sengoku on the stage was already used to this scene. Shichibukai has always been such a wild and uninhibited person, so it would be good to have them come to support, if you want to use Marine discipline to restrain them. It's even more impossible, so Sengoku could only watch Doflamingo put his feet on the table. There was nothing I could do but frown, so I could only continue to talk about some Summit War precautions on the stage. And tomorrow's strategic deployment. Doflamingo put his feet on the table and lay half on the chair. He looks like a nurturing uncle. Ron hated it when someone put their feet up on the table. And it was at such a large meeting. Not only is there no manners, there is no discipline. Ron didn't care whether Shichibukai was a Marine employee or not, but it was unacceptable for him to do such an undisciplined thing in a Marine meeting. What made Ron even more angry was that Sengoku didn't even fart. This Marine Marshal is really incompetent, so, Ron immediately said angrily. Sengoku, Doflamingo is so undisciplined in your meeting, you don't even care? The majestic Marshal Marine, can't you suppress the 7 Seas? Sengoku was stunned when he was told. He is also helpless. Shichibukai has no discipline, it has always been like this, how can it be controlled? And the identity of this Doflamingo is extremely troublesome. Sengoku could only say angrily to Doflamingo, Dover, put your feet down. However, Doflamingo still has his feet there. Not only did I not let go. Instead, he suddenly covered his face with one hand. Laughed out loud. Furofor, Sengoku, isn't the marine table just for placing your feet? Sengoku was speechless. There was nothing he could do about this kind of disobedience. However, Ron's expression turned bad. He slammed the table. Waste, Sengoku. Today I will teach you how to manage Shichibukai. I'll only demonstrate once. Ron's tone became increasingly serious. Then he snapped his fingers. CP9 quickly pushed open the door and entered. Ron waved his hand and ordered, drag him out. If he puts his leg on the table, he will break that leg. 085. 10. You think you can defeat me in 10 minutes? 9, 8, 7. Previous chapter. Next chapter advertisement. Sengoku was stunned at this moment. He never thought that things would develop to this point. Ron is so decisive. Just because Doflamingo put his legs on the table during the meeting, he had to pull him out and break his legs. Is this too harsh, and doesn't he know what Doflamingo does? This guy is not something to be offended easily. He is more than just Shichibukai. This guy also controls a lot of underground transactions. It is a very important middleman. Even often, world government or marine purchases weapons. All need to go through him as an intermediary. As we all know, the largest weapons manufacturer in the world is Wano Kuni. That is the territory controlled by Kaido of 4 emperors. Most of the weapons in the world are manufactured by them and then bought and sold through Doflamingo. In other words, more than half of the weapons in the world are handled through Doflamingo. Without him, the entire world's arms market will become a state of chaos. Many countries even fight without weapons, and Doflamingo has a close relationship with the 5 elders. There is also an unexplained relationship with the world government. It is said that he was once a celestial dragon. And his current identity is still the king of Dressrosa. No matter what his identity is, you cannot easily provoke this person. If not, most weapons purchase channels for world government and marine will be interrupted. This was a fatal blow to marine. Soldiers without weapons have no way to go to the battlefield, and the marine's combat effectiveness will be greatly weakened. The same is true for world government. This is really helpless. This is something that can't be helped. There is no way other places can handle such a large number of military orders. And the quality of weapons elsewhere is nowhere near as good as Wano Kuni's. Whether it's swords or guns, Wano Kuni's craftsmanship always stands above the rest. This is why whether it is world government or marine. Reasons why weapons are often purchased from Wano Kuni. And Doflamingo is the middleman. He is in charge of matchmaking. So he has an extremely important role. This is why Sengoku tolerated him being so rude in the marine conference room before. Put aside this relationship, Doflamingo is also the king of Dressrosa. As an orthodox world government member country, the identity of King Doflamingo is recognized by the world government. If a king's legs were broken just like that, that's really hard to explain. It's easy to cause a coup in Dressrosa. It will also make other members of the participating countries feel insecure. In this case, break a king's leg. When the world summit is held in the future, which king would dare to come freely? So Sengoku saw Doflamingo being so arrogant and had no choice but to endure it. Advertisement, but I never expected it. Ron, this guy, didn't care about anything and made this decision directly. Didn't he consider the consequences? Although doing this is satisfying for a while, how will these messes be solved later? What should I do if Dressrosa? What should Marine do if I buy weapons in the future? The most important thing is that if you ask CP9 to catch him, he is no match for him. But Kizaru was not surprised by this incident. He had long expected that Ron would teach Doflamingo a lesson for this behavior. Mahawk on the side, although he was silent at the moment, holding his arms and sitting in the corner, was already extremely shocked in his heart. This bald man is so ruthless. Isn't he afraid that Doflamingo will rebel now? He is not someone who will just give in. This time is the most important time for Marine to face off against the Whitebeard pirates. There is absolutely no room for internal chaos. If Doflamingo makes a big fuss at this time, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of losses to Marine. How should the Inspector General solve this problem? On the side, Boya Hancock has been watching this matter indifferently. He held his head high and stared at this scene. Ron glanced at her, feeling unhappy with the look in this arrogant woman's eyes, and would deal with her later. Just when CP9 was approaching, Doflamingo's smile gradually stopped and turned ferocious. Hey, are you kidding? I am the king of Dressrosa and a member of the world government. I'm afraid you have no right to do this. Nothing more than an Inspector General. I just put my legs here, and Marshal Marine doesn't dare to say anything. Doflamingo said in a dark voice, and Ron just smiled and shook his head. Stop saying you're a king. When I am in a meeting, even if the 5 elders dare to put their legs on the table, I will break their legs. Who are you? Ron's tone was as calm as squeezing an ant to death. This time, Doflamingo was really angry, holding his forehead with one hand. He laughed in anger. Furofor, then you can give it a try? I want to leave here, can anyone stop me? As soon as he finished speaking. String Fruit's ability is activated immediately. Suddenly, the entire ground turned into a line. Doflamingo also knew that he had to use his full strength in this situation. So the Fruit Awakening was used from the beginning. Let me do it. At this time, Garp stretched his muscles and stood up. It seemed like he wanted to show off, use this action to show his determination. But Ron didn't give him a chance to show off and shook his head. You are not needed here. Seeing Garp's performance, Kizaru couldn't help but secretly thought. Advertisement. Mr. Garp is indeed a master. As long as he works harder to express himself at this time, no one will doubt it when Summit War gives Luffy a chance. Think of this. Kizaru also stood up immediately and said. Give me a minute and I'll deal with him. The abnormal behavior of these two people really made all the Marine executives present feel incredible. Akainu stood up halfway and was stunned. He never dreamed that Kizaru could beat him to it. Does the sun rise from the west today? How could this guy Kizaru be so proactive? Isn't this too progressive? Is there something wrong with this guy's brain? He's not usually like this? However, Ron also waved his hand and told Kizaru to step aside. He calmly ordered to CP9, "It's time to verify the results of your training these days. How long will it take to resolve the battle? Tell the time." As soon as Ron finished speaking, Lucci stood up first. Rolled up his sleeves, he said with piercing eyes. 10. Hearing this number, Doflamingo couldn't help but laugh. 10 minutes. Did you hear it right? Of course Doflamingo knows Lucci and knows his strength. Isn't this guy the leader of CP9? Now he actually has the courage to stand in front of him and speak nonsense. It seems that my strength has really been underestimated. Doflamingo couldn't help but laugh out loud, then he looked at Lucci and said. Is there something wrong with your brain? You have been with this arrogant bald man for a long time, have you been infected too? It's just CP9. Even if I let you go together, what will happen? You can't stand in front of me for even a minute. He actually said he could finish me off within 10 minutes. It's so hilarious, 4. Doflamingo laughed. The ground gradually turned into threads, appearing behind him. Like 16 sharp knives, pointing at everyone aggressively. 16 rounds of holy bullets, however, what he didn't expect was. Lucci did not reply to his words, instead, he calmly said the next number. 9. What? When Doflamingo heard this, he suddenly realized. This guy is counting down the days. Advertisement. When he just said that, he didn't mean 10 minutes. It refers to the number 10. Ridiculous. CP9 dares to be so arrogant in front of him. It's really too much of a lie. If you are even more pretentious than yourself, then you will have to pay the price. 8. Lucci counted down to here. The body assumed a strange posture. This is the starting position of the flowing water-shattering fist. At the same time, armament hockey is wrapped around it. 7. Lucci said calmly. At this moment, Doflamingo's face turned dark. This guy is literally counting down the days. Does he think he can solve himself within 10 numbers? Are you kidding me? Today I will let you know that the sky is high and the earth is high. 16 rounds of holy bullets. Doflamingo shouted, "Jiao hao jiao." Subsequently, the 16 sharp awl-like lines that were still behind him just now made a clanging sound. He rushed directly towards Lucci. 6. Lucci stared at the extremely thick line and said lightly. Next moment, the entire body quickly disappeared in place. Weaved directly through the middle of the threadball. The hands kept dancing. Light blue light like flowing water, mixed with jet black armament hockey. And its smooth and silky trajectory, weaving through 16 rounds of holy bullets. 5. Then, an incredible scene happened. Doflamingo's high-pressure move actually shattered directly. The 16 rounds of sacred bullets were directly cut into pieces of thread and fell to the ground feebly. And this time, Lucci has arrived in front of Doflamingo. He muttered to himself. At this time, Doflamingo's expression had become extremely shocked. He never expected that his most offensive attack would be broken so easily by the other party. What were those quick body movements and smooth punches just now? No, if you don't defend yourself, it will be over. Doflamingo immediately armed his body with armament hockey. 3. Lucci's hands were like high-pressure water jets, quickly moving towards Doflamingo's chest. 086. That old lady, don't look up and down at others, Hancock said. What about you? Previous chapter next chapter advertisement. Seeing this scene, everyone took a breath of cold air. I never expected that this guy Lucci would become so powerful. Is this the same person who was defeated by Luffy not long ago? Already able to fight Shichibukai so quickly? And it's still an overwhelming advantage. How could it be so powerful? Isn't this rate of progress anti-human? Just the fact that Lucci showed his hands just now shocked everyone. It's incredible. What kind of boxing is this? Everyone present held their breath. Even Sengoku and Garp are like this. Of course they know exactly what kind of strength this CP9 is. The two Shichibukai are also paying close attention to this place. However, at this moment, Doflamingo's expression changed drastically. The fear of dying seemed to have choked his throat. He could even feel Shinigami's cold hands. Impossible. Doflamingo was already sweating on his forehead. I just can't figure it out. How could a CP9 defeat his 16 rounds of holy vicious bullets so easily? But now he can't allow him to think so much. The opponent's attack is already right in front of you. Intuition told him, if you just use armament hockey, you can't prevent it. As expected, it was like flowing water in Lucci's hands, mixed with armament hockey. Almost instantly, 750 tore open the armament hockey he was defending on his chest. The light blue light streaked across, leaving a wound with every touch. A line of blood flew out. This set of attacks is as smooth as silk and continuous. The speed of the flowing water-shattering fist is too fast. 2. Lucci remained expressionless and said lightly. Doflamingo endured the pain and immediately stepped back. Although he was still angry about the countdown that Lucci said. But I have to admit it, the opponent's strength is indeed superior to his own. At this moment, his entire chest was covered with deep blood marks. Advertisement, no, if you continue like this, you're going to die. Armament hockey couldn't defend himself at all, hateful. Is that the only way to use it? Doflamingo immediately used string fruit to create a cocoon-like thing around it. Wrap yourself in it. At the same time, cover this cocoon with armament hockey. Utilize the toughness of string fruit and the reinforcement of armament hockey. Reached his strongest defensive state so far. Thousands of layers will never break the cocoon. Doflamingo shouted. The whole person has hid in the cocoon. And at this moment, Hawkeye, who was watching the battle on the sidelines, couldn't help but be surprised. His usually calm face suddenly frowned. His eyes were like those of a hawk, staring straight at Doflamingo's cock. I didn't expect he had such tricks. With such a strong defense, I'm afraid my slashing attack won't be able to easily cut it off. Mihawk, also a Shichibukai, fully affirmed Doflamingo's move. However, Lucci's expression did not change at all. His eyes were still sharp, looking at this cocoon. Still shouting out the last number without hesitation. 1. The words just fell. Lucci's entire body was seen burning with light blue light. Speed and strength have all been improved. It turned out that he had already practiced the flowing water shattering rock fist to the 8th level. A full half a month, 1,000 times faster training. It is equivalent to more than 40 years of practice. I finally reached the 8th level of this boxing technique. Now Lucci can freely control the breath in his body. Combined with the use of armament hockey, the attack power even exceeds the original flowing water rock breaking fist. In an instant, the light blue light seemed to escape from the body, dancing rapidly with his hands. It seemed as if there were countless slashes lingering outside the body. The whole person is like a human meat grinder, the hard cocoon of Doflamingo. Advertisement in this continuous attack, it is being divided layer by layer. In an instant, countless broken threads were flying all over the sky, like catkins falling from the sky. The speed is getting faster and faster, even though it is called 1,000 layers of defense. At this moment, it was cut down to the last thin layer by this sharp blade like running water. 0. Lucci's last voice fell, the whole body suddenly slowed down. The thumb is slightly bent and the 4 fingers are together. Like a sharp knife, it stabbed straight at Doflamingo, who only had the last layer of cocoon silk defense. At this moment, Doflamingo's face was full of shock and despair. He, BFFJ, never expected that his strongest defensive skill would be so vulnerable in front of him. Before that, he didn't think that the other party was overestimating his capabilities if he killed him within 10 seconds. But I never expected it, but it's just right, the other party is just a CP9. Normally I wouldn't even look at them. Even a petty thief like Luffy can kill him, this kind of person is not qualified to fight against him. But it was only a few days, this guy's strength has improved by leaps and bounds. He suppressed himself until he couldn't breathe at all. It only took 10 seconds, that ended the fight. What is going on? No, they can't become that powerful on their own. It's the bald one, it's definitely him, otherwise he wouldn't have said that he would test the CP9 training results just now. It turns out that I am using myself to test their results. Damn guy. Doflamingo regretted it, he would have known better not to come to this poor place. At that time, Doflamingo knew that this guy had killed Crocodile, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, he believed that the bald Inspector General was just trying to establish his authority. It was just a show-off, I never expected that it would actually come true. Now, Lucci's hand gradually expanded in Doflamingo's pupils. Advertisement, then a popping sound was heard, it plunged directly into Doflamingo's chest. It's only an inch away from the heart, just push forward a little harder. Doflamingo will die suddenly on the spot. After Doflamingo was subdued, the walls that had become lines around him returned to their original state. 10 seconds to deal with the Shichibukai. This is Lucci who has practiced the flowing water-breaking rock fist. Inspector General, how should we deal with this person? Lucci came to Ron carrying Doflamingo, asked for instructions. I said break his legs and carry him out for execution. Lucci responded yes, then he carried Doflamingo out. How arrogant Doflamingo was just now, he is so embarrassed now. Now, there was silence, silence fell, after a while. There was a miserable howl outside, and 2 clicks. And at this time, Ron knocked on the table, drawing everyone's attention back. Then he said calmly, from now on, if anyone dares to put his or her feet on the table during a meeting, I will interrupt whichever foot is put on the table. Speaking of which, Ron banged the table twice more. His tone also became a little more intense, have you understood? Kizaru is so discerning, he immediately sat up straight and placed his hands on the table like a student. Immediately afterwards, he quickly expressed his position. Understood. With Kizaru taking the lead, several other people quickly followed suit. Ron nodded with satisfaction, look around. He found that everyone was sitting there looking at him, except Boa Hancock, who was looking down at others with his head raised, looking arrogant. Ron was a little unhappy. That old woman, yes, I'm just talking about you, don't look up at me. 087. During Marine's meeting, the Empress made a gesture of contempt, and Ron taught her how to be a good person. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement after Lucci defeated Doflamingo. Everyone present was filled with horror. They never expected that Lucci's strength would improve so quickly. This is simply not in line with reality. At this time, Sengoku suddenly thought of it. The soldiers led by that guy Ron seem to be training with Ron every day. And their bodies are becoming stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before this, Sengoku didn't take this seriously at all. Just thought it was just ordinary physical exercise. But now after seeing Lucci's performance, I couldn't help but take a breath. Isn't this too exaggerated? If each of them could reach this level, wouldn't Marine's combat history be invincible? How can it be? It's hard to believe. The one who couldn't believe it the most was Garp. Because not long ago, his grandson had just defeated this man named Lucci. Garp knew very well what kind of strength his grandson was. A person who can even defeat Luffy has such incredible strength. In Garp's eyes, someone who can't even defeat Luffy is simply indescribably weak. If you can't even defeat Luffy, it's absolutely impossible to defeat Doflamingo. The difference in strength is too great, but now. The fact before us is that the man who couldn't beat Luffy 2 days ago has become so powerful now that he defeated Shichibukai Doflamingo in just 10 seconds. Moreover, this guy Doflamingo is also a fruit power awakener. It can be said that he is the only strong one among 10,000. The boxing technique used by Lucci just now was really unpredictable. Compared to Sengoku and Garp's surprise, Kizaru is so much better. After all, he had already seen Shichibukai take action in the Sabaody archipelago. So, Seeing Lu Chi so powerful at this moment, there is no surprise. And after traveling with Ron, I also learned a lot about Ron. It is said that the marine soldiers on Ron's ship will learn a boxing technique that Ron taught them. As long as you learn, your strength will improve quickly. Strength and speed will also be improved. Advertisement. Hawkeye Mihawk was also in a very heavy mood at the moment. The face that had always been relatively calm also had some unnatural expressions at this moment. When he saw Doflamingo use the last skill just now, he had already felt how strong it was. If it were him, it would actually be difficult to split it open with one strike. But I never expected it. This CP9 can actually do it. When did CP9 become so powerful? Even CPO is not that strong. No wonder the Inspector General is so confident. It turns out that the guards around him are so strong. Hawkeye took a deep breath. He couldn't help but look at Ron. However, at this time, he suddenly felt that there was a strong aura behind Ron, staring at him. It's the breath of the sword. At this moment, Mihawk suddenly became energetic. This is the great swordsman's intuition. Behind the Inspector General, there is a great swordsman who is no less powerful than him. Hawkeye's long-lost passion was ignited. I haven't encountered such a strong sword energy for a long time. Could it be that there is already a swordsman in this world who looks down on him? Hawkeye could feel his knife humming and vibrating. That's the excitement of Black Knife. The world's most powerful black sword in his hand also felt the fighting spirit. Hawkeye could not hide his excitement. He looked behind Ron sharply. He could feel that the breath was the breath of the sword. It is a very strong sword, sure enough, when I moved my eyes there. Look at a woman holding a sword in her hand. This is the sword. This aura emanates from this woman. Why are you so young? Mihawk couldn't help but be stunned. He has never seen this person before. But the aura exuding from her body is enough to be called a great swordsman. And this person, none other than Toshigi. Advertisement. Toshigi has been studying the Bankai user guide for half a month. Calculated, it has been more than 40 years. Just today, she finally understood the secret of Bankai. The small knight Shigure in her hand, it is no longer an ordinary knife. The entire conference room was extremely quiet. Everyone is thinking about different things. The scene just now shocked everyone so much, it makes people fall into deep thought. At this time, suddenly there was a roar that shocked everyone. That old lady, yes, I'm just talking about you, don't look up at me. Ron's sudden roar came so unexpectedly, it shocked Boa Hancock directly. I couldn't help but feel shocked. Old ladies? Who is this calling? Boa Hancock felt a little confused. This is obviously a title for a woman. And extremely indecent. Who is it? Who is this Inspector General calling? Could it be that Staff Officer E? Boa Hancock couldn't help but think, because besides her, there was only one woman present. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, and she fits this title better. That is Staff Officer E, because this guy is indeed older. So it is easier to understand if you call him a bitch. Etc. At this time, Boya Hancock realized something was wrong. Because at this moment, the position of staff he was opposite him. And it was obvious that the direction the Inspector General was looking in was his own doing. But there are only two people working here, one is himself and the other is Mihawk. The person sitting in the middle was Doflamingo, but this guy was now carried out. The leg is probably broken. Advertisement, so it's definitely not him. Could it be that you were talking about yourself? Suddenly he came to his senses. She found out that it was Ron who was shouting at her. At this moment, Boa Hancock was almost so angry that his hair stood on end. This is the first time someone calls himself that. Isn't this too much? She is the most beautiful woman in the world. And it's also the queen of Amazon lilies. All men will fall under their pomegranate skirt. No one can resist his own temptation. His own charm kills both men and women. Whether it is a man or woman, an old man or a child, they will lose their consciousness in front of them. It will be difficult for them to extricate themselves. The most beautiful woman in the world is so charming. This is also the reason why Hancock is so arrogant. But at this moment, the bald guy opposite, she actually called herself an old woman. What an unpleasant word. I never thought that one day someone would use this word to describe myself. I'm really mad at my concubine. Boya Hancock is such an arrogant person, how could he be so angry? Conquerors hockey owners have their own pride. Are you calling me concubine? Boya Hancock glared angrily, and his tone could no longer be suppressed. It's you I'm talking about. This is the conference room at the Marine headquarters. Recognize your identity. You're just a Marine thug. Don't look at me like this with your head raised and your eyes lowered. You uneducated old ladies, I will teach you a lesson today. Ron slammed the table, said, as expected, let's talk about my concubine. Boa Hancock suddenly became furious. My name is Boa Hancock. You rude person, get out of here. While Hancock was speaking, he put one hand on his hips and pointed at someone, leaning back. The slender figure is fully exposed. A group of Marine soldiers couldn't help but look at Love and exclaimed, here he appears. That extremely contemptuous gesture of everyone, factory. 088. Tame Shichibukai, Sengoku, please watch, I will only demonstrate once. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement, ahem. Sengoku saw that this situation was about to break out, and it was really not good. He coughed twice quickly, interrupted the confrontation between the two, and prepared to get the topic back on track. After all, it is the pre-war mobilization meeting for Summer War. The most important thing is to boost morale. By the way, let me explain the general strategy. These need to be communicated in advance, otherwise there will definitely be some emergencies in the large-scale battle tomorrow. If there is no way to prepare in advance, then, when the entire Summer War begins, it will appear to be in a hurry. In this case, if something unexpected happens, you will be very passive. Sengoku is the resourceful general after all, so he is used to arranging everything. Prepare countermeasures in advance for everything that may or may not happen. This is why Sengoku is almost always victorious. He never fights an unprepared battle, since 367 has decided to go to war with Whitebeard. Then think about any possibility in advance. This battle will definitely be a fight to the death between the two sides. Therefore, every link is important. The reason why Sengoku gathered everyone here the day before the Summit War started. Just to illustrate this situation, at the same time, fully deploy your plan. As long as everyone acts according to their plans tomorrow, then the Summit War will definitely be won. Sengoku has this confidence, and there is something more important about this meeting. It's about building up the relationship between Marine's senior management and Shichibukai. After all, Shichibukai is also an important fighting force. In this battle, it will definitely play a decisive role. But there is little communication between Marine and Shichibukai, so there is not much cooperation between them. If the two sides do not know each other very well, it is very bad in a large-scale battle like Summit War. So Sengoku wanted to use this meeting to have a good communication between Shichibukai and Marine. Advertisement: there is a bit of tacit understanding between each other, and they get along well. But the current situation is obviously off track. The goal of this meeting was not achieved at all. On the contrary, within 10 minutes of the meeting, a Shichibukai was carried out. And his legs were broken. It's obvious that it has lost its combat effectiveness. This guy can't be counted on in Summit War. This makes Sengoku very depressed. Obviously he wants to have a good communication with Shichibukai and then give full play to their combat power. But now there is one less Shichibukai left, and judging from the current situation, there seems to be some conflict between the Inspector General and the Empress Boa Hancock. This is really a headache. It would be terrible if this guy killed the Empress again. That leaves one Shichibukai. In order to prevent this from happening, Sengoku immediately changed the subject. Because he could feel that if he didn't change the subject, the anti-imperialist guy would be in trouble. Because Sengoku could clearly feel that Ron was a little unhappy. Let's discuss the main content of this meeting. Inspector General, Boya Hancock has this character, and she didn't do it on purpose. Besides, it's not a big deal. Sengoku coughed twice. Trying to save the situation, want to be a peacemaker. And Boa Hancock, you should also be careful about your attitude. This is the Marine headquarters after all. Sengoku consoled both sides, regarding Sengoku's attitude. Ron was extremely dissatisfied. Shichibukai is like a wild beast. If you don't completely tame him, he may bite you at some point. Therefore, you must not adopt a tolerant attitude when dealing with such people. The more you tolerate them, the more unscrupulous they become. If you want to take advantage of their combat power, you must completely tame them. Advertisement: so, their enthusiasm must be suppressed. Keep them in line. This is the Marine headquarters, and they have to follow the rules of the Marine headquarters. We can't bring all those bad habits outside the Marine headquarters. For example, if Doflamingo put his feet on the table just now, Ron would order his legs to be broken. Just interrupt him once. You ask him if he dares to let go the second time? He would never dare. This is the most effective way to deal with these pirates who always have their own way of doing things. Only by beating them painfully will they be afraid of you and respect your rules. The truth is that simple. There is no need to reason with them at all. They only remember beatings. Sengoku, do you know what is your biggest problem? Ron put the Empress aside first. Then he watched Sengoku speak word by word. As the Inspector General, if there is a problem with Marine soldiers, he must take care of it. If the Marine Admiral has a problem, he must also take care of it. If the Marine Marshal has a problem, of course he must take care of it. Only in this way can the wind of Marine be eliminated. Reigniting Marine justice. Sengoku heard Ron say this. I couldn't help but be slightly startled. What's the problem, sir? Why does it involve me again? You guy, you won't be against anyone you meet today, right? Seeing that Doflamingo was unhappy, he broke his leg. Seeing that the Empress was unhappy, she cursed loudly. This time the conflict has been transferred to me again, right? Sengoku was a little unhappy, he said with a frown. What's the problem, old man? Advertisement. Ron waved. Toshigi, holding the sword behind him, immediately came over to fill Ron's cup of tea. Ron took 2 slow sips. Moisten your throat, then he said leisurely. Wolf cubs cannot be raised until they are mature, and ferocious beasts cannot be coaxed. What do you mean? Sengoku asked subconsciously. Sengoku, as a dignified Marine Marshal, you have to coax Shichibukai. Are you embarrassed? I'm embarrassed for you. Ron put down the teacup. I wiped my mouth with a tissue, and then tapped the table with my fingers regularly. Then he continued. Shichibukai are ferocious beasts. If you want to rely on them to coax them to do things for you, do you think they will try their best? Aren't you afraid that they will bite you back? Deal with these beasts. The simplest and most direct way is to scare them directly, eliminate their vigor, break their fangs, and tame the animal nature in them. Only in this way can we use them as we wish in the future. And 2.7 doesn't rely on your coaxing method every time. Hear Ron say this. Sengoku was stunned. He had thought about this problem before. Every time he asked Shichibukai to send out a mission, it was extremely difficult. They would always put some conditions and often threaten Marine. Sengoku had long disliked this matter. Even hurting Marine sometimes. But what can be done? He also wants to hit Shichibukai. It's not that he doesn't want to do it, but that he can't do it. Sengoku is afraid that if he pushes Shichibukai into a hurry, he will not be able to tame him and it will cause a big trouble for Marine. Then the gain outweighs the loss. Ron saw the embarrassment on Sengoku's face. He couldn't help but shook his head. Sengoku, this guy, just cares too much. Sengoku, I will only demonstrate once. You decide how to tame Shichibukai. Ron said calmly. 089. Sengoku, are you teaching me how to do something? Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Sengoku also thinks Ron is right. For Shichibukai, they should be beaten painfully and scared to make them surrender. But there are risks in doing so. How can you guarantee that you will scare the other person? If someone presses you, wouldn't it be very troublesome to become Marine's enemy? Especially these 3 current Shichibukai, 2 of them are kings. One is a lone ranger. No matter which one is pressed, it will not be easy to deal with. So Sengoku could only tolerate it, coaxing Shichibukai to do things. At this moment, suddenly I heard Ron say, Sengoku, I will only demonstrate once. You decide how to tame Shichibukai. Ron's words were spoken to Sengoku in a daze. It took a moment to react. It turns out this guy is educating himself. He was actually teaching himself a lesson. Sengoku is Marine Marshal after all. In such a public place, he was suddenly educated by a seemingly young Inspector General. How can you say that you still have some face to lose? This is the Marine headquarters and Marshal Marine is the highest official here. No matter what, it's impossible for Brad to tell him what to do, right? Although this guy is the Inspector General, but what if I don't care? The reason why Sengoku accepted this Inspector General was entirely based on the fact that this guy couldn't control himself. Sengoku is also an ordinary person, and he doesn't want anyone to point fingers behind his back and teach him how to do things. Sengoku originally thought that the Inspector General would only control people below the level of Marine Admiral. That's why I tolerated Ron, but now, he suddenly found that this guy had put his hand on his head. Started to take care of myself. Advertisement. This really makes Sengoku a little unhappy. No matter what, he is still a Marine Marshal, and the most important thing about a Marshal is his majesty. It is the kind of majesty that cannot be violated. Only in this way can the prestige of Marshal Marine be established. And this Inspector General educates himself in public. Isn't this harming his dignity? Inspector General, are you teaching me how to do things? The reason why I didn't use your method is naturally my reason. Sengoku said angrily. Ron knocked on the table. I'm just teaching you how to do things. Do you have any objections? You? Okay, I'll just listen to you and tell me, where did I go wrong? If you can't tell me anything, I will impeach you to the 5 elders and remove you from the post of Inspector General. Sengoku didn't expect Ron to be so direct. He actually admitted it directly. If it were anyone else, they would definitely say politely, no, I don't dare. Sengoku was speechless. This Inspector General really doesn't give himself any face. If that's the case, then it's time to talk about it. If he couldn't tell it, then he wouldn't let the matter pass so easily. After all, there's a bit of reputation involved. Sengoku snorted coldly. Sengoku didn't expect that when he finished saying this sentence. Stussy behind Ron suddenly couldn't hold it back and burst out laughing. This made Sengoku's face darken. Why are you laughing? Stussy smiled and shook his head without speaking. I thought. This Sengoku still wants to go to the 5 elders to impeach Ron. It's really funny. Even if you borrow the courage of the 5 elders, he wouldn't dare. If you impeach me, I'm afraid you won't be able to remove the Inspector General. On the contrary, you, the Marshal, will be removed. It was precisely because of the thought of this that Stussy couldn't help laughing. After all, among everyone present, she is the only one who knows Ron's true identity. That's why it's so ridiculous to hear this sentence. Sengoku glared at Stussy, then returned to the topic. Looking at Ron from the stage, he said word for word. Advertisement, first I'm Marshal Marine, so I naturally have more things to consider than you. You only cared about your own momentary pleasure and did not consider the consequences of doing so. These are all things I have to consider. Behind me is the entire Marine. I have to be responsible for all Marine soldiers, so it is impossible for me to do everything according to my wishes. Ron heard this annoying refusal. I couldn't help but slap the table and said. One general is really incompetent and the 3 armies are exhausted. It's because you, the leader, are so submissive at this moment that your Marine soldiers are bullied by Shichibukai for no reason. If you could be tougher and completely tame the Shichibukai from the beginning, do you think they would still have the courage to bully Marine soldiers? Are your men still trembling with fear when they see Shichibukai? Will you still see Shichibukai burning, killing, and looting, but you don't dare to go up and take care of it? It's all because you, the leader, set a bad example. That's why your subordinates felt that Shichibukai was superior to them, so they tolerated everything. Ron's voice got louder and louder, the tone became more and more passionate. What he said was every word. Every sentence was like a sharp sword, piercing Sengoku's heart. Sengoku kept retreating. Impossible. What's the evidence for what you're saying? I give preferential treatment to Shichibukai just so that they can cooperate in carrying out tasks. How could it possibly cause the situation you mentioned? Sengoku didn't believe it. At this time, Ron didn't continue talking nonsense. Snapped his fingers. CP9 Bluno suddenly stepped forward. Ron ordered in a low voice. Bring up the Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral. After a while, Bluno used the power of the gate fruit to pass through the wall as quickly as possible, came to the infirmary, and brought Vice Admiral, the Flying Squirrel, who was changing the dressing. Watch Sengoku. This Vice Admiral was ordered to summon the 7th Sea. The person he's responsible for is Empress Boa Hancock. You can ask him carefully if his call went well this time. Shichibukai Empress Boa Hancock, has she ever been very cooperative with his work? Sengoku indeed knew that the Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral was responsible for summoning Boa Hancock this time. Advertisement, so he asked. What happened? Why is your hand injured? Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral is a little confused. I don't know what the situation is now. I don't know how to answer either. Just tell the truth about what happened at that time. Ron said calmly. Then, the Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral told the whole story of how he went to pick up Hancock. And how uncooperative Hancock was, even turning everyone on the ship into stone, and he relied on pricking his hand with a knife to stay awake. All the things were said once. Sengoku couldn't help but feel a little ashamed after hearing this. 903. It seems that everything the Inspector General said is true. These Shichibukai simply won't cooperate with Marines' work. Even though I usually coax them so much and give them so many privileges. They still won't actively cooperate when Marine needs them. At this time, Ron continued. Did you see that this is still the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral? even if Shichibukai Boa Hancock did such a thing, he would not dare to do anything to Shichibukai and could only endure it. Even if his brothers were turned into stone, he wouldn't dare do anything to Shichibukai. It's because you gave Shichibukai so many privileges and kept providing for them that all your marine soldiers thought they were inferior to Shichibukai, so they didn't dare to go against Shichibukai at critical moments. Sengoku is thorough. I didn't expect that the Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral's trip to pick up Hancock would not go smoothly, and so many things would happen. Moreover, many soldiers were turned to stone, and Shichibukai actually attacked Marine. Thinking of this, Sengoku sighed and said, "You are right. For people like Shichibukai, we should tame them from the beginning, pull out their fangs, and eliminate their energy. Let all Marines know that Shichibukai is one step below us, not us one step below him. In this case, the soldiers will have the confidence to say no to Shichibukai, and they will not be angry anymore. You tell me what to do, I will listen to you." Sengoku also knew that he had done something wrong before, so he remembered what Ron said. "Sengoku, I will only demonstrate once. You decide how to tame Shichibukai." Then he said, "Please also ask the Inspector General to demonstrate how to tame Shichibukai." 090. To tame an arrogant woman, you need to spank her. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Garp and Commander. He looked at each other. Everyone saw disbelief in each other's eyes. Sengoku actually admitted his mistake. How can this be? This is completely inconsistent with Sengoku's character. Garp thought for a while and said, "This Inspector General is so eloquent. I really admire him for being able to convince Sengoku." Staff officer. He covered his forehead and responded. "It's really surprising. This guy Sengoku is usually good at talking about truth. He always tells us great truths, but we can't explain him. This is great. I didn't expect Sengoku to have such a day." Garp laughed loudly when he heard this and said, "I didn't expect that this guy Sengoku would be convinced by other people's principles one day. It really makes me happy, finally someone who can speak Sengoku. It saves the rest of us from trying to reason with him. We are confused every time by Sengoku, and in the end we have to admit our mistakes. Now is the time for Sengoku to experience this feeling." Garp and Counselor. He couldn't help but smile knowingly. "It's just that they spoke too loudly," was heard by Sengoku. Sengoku turned back and glared at the two of them angrily at this moment. "Shut up you two." Then, Sengoku turned to look at Ron. "Inspector General, I support your plan. What are you going to do?" Advertisement. Ron smiled. Then, he said very happily, "If you know you made a mistake, correct it and it's not too late to make up for it. I'm really happy that you figured it out in time. Sengoku, you have many advantages, but you also have many shortcomings. As a Marine Marshal, you have to be tough, don't be indecisive, and don't look forward and backward. Especially when dealing with pirates like Shichibukai, the more you retreat, the more they advance, the tougher you are, the more they retreat." This guy Ron is obviously less than 20 years old. But when he started to point out Sengoku's mistakes, no one felt any violation. Sengoku is Marshal Marine, who is over 80 years old. At this moment, I am being criticized and educated here by a young man less than 20 years old. Changing any scene or any other person would make this scene very inconsistent. But being the only one with Ron here made all the Marines present unable to say a single word of discord. Sengoku could only nod there. "I'm always afraid that so many Marine soldiers will be implicated because of my decisions." Ron shook his head. "You are wrong to think so. Not only are these Marines not your targets, they are your most solid and reliable backing. No matter what decision you make, you will have nearly 200,000 soldiers supporting you behind you. So you have to be tough, don't be afraid of anything, just do it with confidence because of your courage. As long as you become tougher, the entire Marine will become tougher. 200,000 troops are enough to make any decision you make is correct." After listening to Ron say this, Sengoku was finally relieved. Immediately back on topic, watching Ron tame the Shichibukai. Said, "Inspector General, these two Shichibukai are difficult to tame. Boa Hancock is the one who owns Conqueror's Hockey. Such people are extremely proud and unwilling to be inferior to others. So it may not be very easy to really tame her. And that Mahawk has always been a loner, not forming alliances with anyone or joining any organization. Advertisement, he is a lone ranger, so it is very difficult to defeat him." Sengoku starts analyzing. Sengoku's voice is neither loud nor quiet. But these two Shichibukai can definitely be heard. Anyone would be unhappy if someone said that in public. Not to mention these two Shichibukai, they never expected the Marine would be openly discussing how to tame them. "Are you pretending they can't hear you?" Boa Hancock, who has always been proud, is holding his waist with one hand and pointing at Ron with the other hand. He said in an extremely arrogant tone, "This is the biggest joke I heard today. Are you ready to die for me? It's your honor." I saw someone pointing a finger at Ron. Tashigi immediately frowned, "Step over to Ron." He directly pulled out Xiaoyi Shiger, pointed at Boa Hancock, and said, "Lord Inspector General, let me deal with her." Tashigi at this moment is completely different from what he was half a month ago. Because of strength, Tashigi half a month ago always gave people a cautious feeling. And at this moment, Tashigi was full of confidence, and his eyes became much sharper. There is a kind of cold and capable beauty, the moment she pulled out Xiaoyi Shiger. The first one to react was Hawkeye, Great Knife. The ghostly energy is so strong, it seems to come from the underworld. Hawkeye couldn't help but said, "The aura emanating from this woman." Advertisement. This feeling, that's right, it feels like a great swordsman. This woman turned out to be a great swordsman as well. Hawkeye couldn't help but become interested. He has never seen such a young woman become a great swordsman. And the quality of this knife is no less than that of the Supreme Knife 12. The strange thing is that I have never seen this knife. This doesn't belong to any of them. This made Hawkeye even more interested. However, at this moment, Ron patted Tashigi on the shoulder and said, "It's not your turn yet, and you can't tame this guy. There is no way you can make this woman submit with your strength." Ron knows Boa Hancock. You know this guy's arrogant character, and you also know that she has conqueror's haki. To deal with such a person, you will be stronger than her. It was impossible to make her give in. She would rather be killed by you than give in. Therefore, relying on strength to suppress will not be effective at all. Even if you are much stronger than her, you will not make her surrender in the slightest. Not to mention domesticated talents. However, at this moment, Ron indeed had an idea in his mind. You cannot use ordinary methods to deal with such an arrogant woman. Sengoku was a little worried at the moment, so he asked. Is there any way for the Inspector General to tame her? I really can't figure out what to do. Ron smiled, he patted Sengoku on the shoulder and turned around. Then he said softly, to tame an arrogant woman, of course you need to spank her butt. 091. Ron took it upon himself to tame the Empress and bow her head to me. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement spanking? What? Sengoku looked confused and thought he heard wrongly. What did the Inspector General just say? Could it be that I have been single for too long, so I have hallucinations? How abominable, I am already old, how can I still have such thoughts? I'm so ashamed, so ashamed. How could such a young and wise Inspector General say such words? It must be that I have been single for too long and am a little too old to be serious. Oops, luckily I didn't blurt out and repeat these two ministers just now. Otherwise, in front of so many people, it would be really embarrassing. Sengoku couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. I feel ashamed because those few words suddenly appeared in my mind just now. He felt that he must have heard wrongly. The Inspector General appears to be young and promising, but he also has a great sense of justice in his heart. How could such an upright and serious man give such advice? Impossible, impossible. I must have heard wrong just now. As the saying goes, the more you think about something, the easier it is to create some kind of illusion. So Sengoku, this guy feels very dirty. Usually I must think too much about this kind of thing. Otherwise, as a dignified marine marshal, how could he have this type of auditory hallucination? Sengoku's face turned red when he thought of this. Somewhat embarrassing, afraid that others will see it. Then he coughed twice. Cover it up a bit, but if you really heard wrong. So, what did the Inspector General originally want to express? How is he going to tame this Shichibukai Boa Hancock? You know, she is the Empress. The majestic king of a country, the owner of Conqueror's Haki, and the most beautiful woman in the world. Even if she makes a mistake, the whole world will forgive her because of her beauty. This is not just a catchphrase of hers, but something that can really be achieved. This is the woman that so many men dream of, all men in the pirate world. Who can guarantee that in front of this woman, he can truly be like Shisui? Even Gujing Wubo was just suppressing it by force. You can see this scene just by looking at the expressions of the young Marines at the venue. This guy, the T-Dolphin, looked at Hancock with his eyes wet. Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral has not even dared to look at Hancock since he came in. The CP9s under Ron were well trained and stood straight behind Ron. But Sengoku had no doubt that a few of them would still glance at Hancock. As for everyone else, it's not that I can't feel the beauty of Hancock, I just use strong concentration to stabilize my mind. A beautiful, powerful and status woman, her body is like a devil and attracts people to commit crimes, but her personality is as arrogant and cold as an iceberg. Who can really not be attracted? Advertisement, however, Sengoku wasn't the only one who got it wrong. Everyone else looked confused, they also thought they heard wrongly. After all, Ron was talking about taming Shichibukai just a second ago. And it has been put into practice. Doflamingo is a good example. Directly use strong tactics to teach him a lesson he will never forget. The legs are discounted. So, people's habitual thinking will directly think of how to tame the Empress Boa Hancock. So a similar method should be used, right? And didn't Ron also say that the way to deal with a ferocious beast is to subdue it directly, extinguish its arrogance, pull out its fangs, and smooth out its spirit? Only in this way can it be truly tamed. So suddenly after they heard Ron's words about spanking, BFAF and Sengoku's reactions were exactly the same. Even the mental journey is similar. Suddenly, everyone except Kizaru felt a little ashamed. After all, Kizaru is a thick-skinned guy, he doesn't know what shame is. At this moment, a very strange scene occurred in the entire Marine conference room. Everyone blushed, he lowered his head in shame. He seems to be reflecting. Kizaru, on the other hand, touched his chin and tilted his head. He was the only one who confirmed that he heard correctly. I even started to think, what on earth would this guy Ron do? Sengoku tried to hide his current embarrassment. Coughed twice, sitting upright, with an enigmatic air. Picked up a cup of tea, took a sip gently, then he said. Inspector General, forgive me for not hearing clearly just now. What did you say? How to tame Shichibukai Boa Hancock? Now that he has determined that he heard it wrong, Sengoku wants to know what Ron said at that time. Sengoku is quite curious about how Ron can use it. From the beginning of the meeting to now, Sengoku's understanding of Ron has undergone earth-shaking changes. Ron was a little unconvinced at first, but this guy subdued Shichibukai forcefully, and he scolded him so much that every word was bloody. It also lets Sengoku know that Ron has some abilities. So the method used this time must be unusual. There's no way spanking is really such a childish thing, right? However, Ron slowly stood up from the chair. He took off his gloves and threw them to Dashiki, who was standing beside him. Subsequently, I moved my wrist and did a standard wrist joint preparation activity. Then he said leisurely, I just said that to deal with an arrogant woman, of course you have to spank her. Ron spoke very slowly this time, every word, very clear. Advertisement. As soon as Ron finished speaking, poof. Sengoku just drank the tea in his mouth and spit it out. The sprayed tea leaves smeared Garp's face, then he coughed twice violently. He was obviously choked. At this moment, Sengoku was really high. It turns out that I heard it right just now. This Inspector General is actually ready to spank someone. This is isn't it too unexpected? Sengoku never expected that Ron would actually do this. That's why I thought I heard wrong just now, turn out. This Inspector General really takes an unusual approach. After all, he is also the king of Amazon lilies. Boa Hancock, the most beautiful woman in the world. If I were really spanked by you in public like this, the consequences are simply unimaginable. She still has to fight with you. Akainu, Aokiji, Commander Crane and others also widened their eyes. Garp wiped the tea from his face in disgust, looking at Ron in disbelief. At first they thought they heard wrongly, but after listening carefully this time, I found that every word is correct. However, the most furious person at the moment was Shichibukai Boa Hancock. This man actually humiliated her twice in public. The first time was calling her a bitch. Originally, Boa Hancock couldn't help but burst out that time. But Sengoku mediates from the middle. It can be regarded as temporarily dispelling Shichibukai Boa Hancock's anger. Let her suppress it temporarily. There was no on-the-spot attack. But at this moment, this guy actually humiliated him publicly for the second time. He even said that he wanted to spank her in front of everyone. This is unbearable. Boa Hancock was so angry that his face turned red. If she could endure this, it wouldn't be her anymore. The Empress pointed her slender fingers at Ron and put her other hand on her hips. Then tilt your head back. His voice was trembling with anger. Said angrily, KR, how dare you humiliate me like this? I will never let you go. Still using this attitude of contempt for everyone? You really don't know how to repent. Ron frowned. For such an important meeting occasion, there is no big or small person. People who don't follow the rules. Advertisement, we must give her a good memory. What do you think this place is? How can such a serious and solemn meeting room allow you to look contemptuous? Just a thug under Marine. There is no basic respect for the upper level leaders, but a look of contempt. A condescending attitude. What kind of discipline is there? Is there an attitude that superiors and subordinates should have? If her arrogant character is not suppressed, there is no way to tame her. It is impossible to make her be obedient in the future. This is why Ron must teach her a lesson. All the Shichibukai happened to be here today, and Ron had to do a screening. If it can be used by Marine and is obedient, then keep it. On the contrary, they were subdued on the spot and taken to the execution platform together tomorrow. With a click, they were put to death once and for all. Ron stood up, put away the nano chair, and returned it to the round box on his chest. Then Ron turned towards Boa Hancock in the eyes of everyone present. Step by step, walked over very slowly. As he walked, he said calmly, Boa Hancock, I'll give you another chance to change your attitude from now on. Lower your head and talk to me properly, then I won't beat you today. Although the voice was very light, like a lover's whisper, the tone was like an executioner's, making people shudder. Boa Hancock was stunned for a brief moment, still not changing his contemptuous attitude. He sneered. No matter what I do, the world will forgive me. But there's only one thing I don't know how to do. Then lower your head and speak. When Empress Boa Hancock said this, her tone became a little more serious. Go head to head with Ron. Okay, the opportunity has been given to you. It's your own fault. Ron shook his head regarding her unrepentant behavior. Very disappointed, it seemed like she could only let her body remember this lesson. If you don't stop, I won't be polite. Empress Boa Hancock looked at Ron, who was getting closer and closer. He couldn't help but frown. She would not allow a man to be so close to her. So he warned, but Ron didn't seem to hear her warning. Still approaching her step by step. Snort, you asked for this, so don't blame me. Boa Hancock immediately made a heart shape with his hands and muttered. Marrow marrow mellow. The next moment, the pink heart-shaped bubble rushed directly towards Ron. 092. Pa, the Empress is hopeless and will beat you until you are no longer arrogant. Previous chapter, next chapter advertisement, marrow marrow mellow. This is Empress Boa Hancock's signature skill. Use it in conjunction with her own charm to achieve better results. This pink love bubble looks very weak. It seemed like it would break with just a slight poke. But the opposite is true. Anyone touched by the pink bubbles will be turned into stone. There is no way to unravel it except Hancock himself. Have to say, this is indeed a very pervert skill. But there is a prerequisite, that is, this person must be attracted to Boa Hancock. In other words, he was confused by her appearance. In order to achieve the best attack effect, this seems to be a prerequisite, as if there are some restrictions on this skill. If an ordinary person were to use this skill, and if they didn't have such a charming appearance, I'm afraid it would have no effect at all. But, in front of the beautiful Boa Hancock, this is not a restriction at all. Because it's impossible for anyone to be indifferent to her. Regardless of men or women, the first time you see Boa Hancock, you will be attracted to her. You will definitely be addicted to it, inextricable. Even those who don't outwardly show attraction, it doesn't mean they aren't really attracted. It can only mean that they use strong willpower to suppress it. Force yourself to stay awake. This is possible for some strong people. The reason why the flying squirrel vice admiral was not petrified when he went to recruit Boa Hancock. It was because he stabbed the back of his hand with a dagger and forced himself to stay awake with the severe pain. Only then was he not seduced by the charm. After all, for him, his willpower is not enough to stay awake without external stimulation. But being able to use painful stimulation to stay awake is already remarkable. If it were anyone else, it is possible to face the Empress Boa Hancock, even under the stimulation of pain. There is no way to extricate yourself from this sinking. The fact that the flying squirrel vice admiral can do this shows that his will is strong enough. But, he is the Marine vice admiral after all. A Marine will eventually have to pay such a high price to keep himself awake and not be fooled by Boa Hancock's beauty, so as not to become petrified. What if it were any other ordinary person? Can he do it? It simply can't be done. Even the Marine vice admiral needs to harm himself, but if it were anyone else, he wouldn't even have the chance to do it. The first time we met, I was fascinated by the beauty and then turned to stone. So, when Boa Hancock uses this move, all the Marine executives present immediately used Haki to defend themselves. Cover the body surface with Haki. Advertisement prepared to resist at Mero Mero Mellow. The reason why they use Haki defense is simply because they don't have the confidence to resist Boa Hancock's beauty. Because once you are tempted, it will definitely be petrified. Unless you can suppress your heartbeat with strong willpower, but no one is 100% sure, so we still adopt a safe Haki defense. The fact that everyone present used the Haki defense at the same time showed that they were tempted by Boa Hancock's beauty. If not, why use this defense mode? If you are not tempted, if you can truly face it calmly, then it won't be petrified. There is no need to use Haki defense at all. So when they did this, it proved that these people still had thoughts about Boa Hancock. Although they usually don't show it, but this does not mean that he is not attracted by the beauty of the Empress. Just relatively sane. Just use strong willpower to suppress your inner thoughts. Force yourself to stay awake. Sengoku, Garp, Akainu, Aokiji, Commander Suru, Momosagi and others all have this armament Haki defensive posture. Because they don't know what to do, they don't have confidence in themselves, and they don't believe that they can remain unmoved. Kizaru seems to be very confident in his determination and does not use weapons to defend himself. This is the horror of Boa Hancock. No matter what age you are, whether you are a man or a woman, when facing this kind of beauty, everyone will surrender. This is true even among upright people. Seeing that Mero Mero Mellow is about to sweep past. And at this time, everyone found out, there was actually one person at the scene who did not use armament Haki to defend his whole body. Isn't he afraid of being petrified, or does it mean that he simply doesn't understand Boa Hancock's abilities? So I don't know the power of Mero Mero Mellow, is this why you are so careless? Sengoku and others who have already used armament Haki to defend their whole body. Looking at Ron's back, I can't help but be extremely worried. This guy actually still looked calm, even the steps were not disturbed. Still walking towards Boa Hancock step by step, it's obvious. The Inspector General did not use armament Haki to defend his whole body at all. There was not even any other means of defense. In this completely unprotected state, he got closer to Boa Hancock step by step. Is he crazy? Sengoku didn't believe Ron would be so impulsive. Based on my understanding of this Inspector General, he must be preparing to quickly avoid this Mero Mero Mellow. Then he took advantage of his speed and quickly circled behind Boa Hancock. And subdued it. Akainu and Aokiji looked at each other. Advertisement I couldn't help but think, this must be the first time the Inspector General has met Boa Hancock. I probably didn't know anything about her before. That's why he made such a careless move. This is bad. The Inspector General will surely be petrified in a moment. At that time, Akainu will take action. After all, if the rest of Marine were attacked in front of Akainu, Akainu can't stand it. This kind of thing is absolutely not allowed to happen. The most important thing is that Akainu is very positive about Ron. I highly support everything Ron does when he comes to Marine. He sincerely welcomes Ron's reform of Marine. He has long been unable to stand looking at Marine like this. But there was nothing he could do to change this. They were all already disheartened. It wasn't until the appearance of the Inspector General that Akainu finally saw the light. It also made him support the Inspector General even more firmly. So, whether in terms of personal worship or for Marine's future justice, Dog will not allow anyone to harm Ron. If Ron is really petrified, then he will be the first to take down Boa Hancock. CP9, Tashigi, and Stussy had Ron's order not for them to stand here and not move. They had already rushed to stop it at this moment. And Boa Hancock saw this scene. A smile couldn't help but appear on his lips. This man was completely undefended. Should he be said to be ignorant or confident? Anyway, Boa Hancock didn't believe that anyone else had the confidence to stay awake in front of her. There is no one in this world who is not tempted by her beauty. In this regard, Boa Hancock is extremely confident. Because she has never seen such a person appear. Didn't you just say that you wanted to come over and spank me? Just turn me into stone. Boa Hancock sneered, because Mero Mero Mellow has already touched Ron's bald head. This bald man was so confident that he didn't even try to avoid it. Boa Hancock is still wondering if the other party will avoid it? It seems that I am worrying too much. Doesn't this bald head look as strong as it looks? Sengoku was also confused. He also thought that Ron would duck away and move around. After all, this is the correct battle mode. Unexpectedly, Ron met Mero Mero Mellow directly. However, what no one expected was, this pink bubble had no effect at all when it passed through Ron's body. Ron still moved forward step by step. It didn't turn into stone at all. Advertisement at this moment, Boa Hancock was confused. With a look of shock on his face, how could it not be effective? You're not using Haki defense at all. Does it mean that my charm is of no use to you? How can this be? Is there anyone in this world who has no idea about themselves? Then Ron just said lightly, you're still a little short of that. This is not how Ron is a gentleman. It was entirely because he and I grew up in the castle. They were the only two people in the castle. What haven't you seen, Ron? In the face of Im's charm, Hancock can only barely pass. Therefore, I have seen the appearance of my sister. I can only say sorry to Hancock. It has been difficult to overcome the difficulties. What? Is my body still a little bad? Boa Hancock couldn't help being stunned. How can this be? Are you kidding me? She is the most beautiful woman in the world. Since Mero Mero Mellow has no effect, then use a more direct move. Perfume femur that will be petrified if hit. Boa Hancock's expression changed. He quickly stood up straight, then turned around and kicked. From one side of the slit chansam, the straight long legs stretched out and swept directly across. Extremely fast. Any part hit by perfume femur will be petrified. Ron was about to be kicked at this critical moment. Ron stretched out his hand. He easily caught the leg that was about to hit his shoulder. Hold Boa Hancock firmly in this position. The scene was very quiet for a while. Boya Hancock's face showed panic for the first time. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull her legs out of the man's iron-like hands. Let me go quickly. Boa Hancock's voice had already fluctuated with a hint of panic. Ron paid no attention, he pulled him over directly. Then he pressed his legs against the wall, one word hoarse. Subsequently, a dwang sound, he slapped Boya Hancock directly on the butt. 093. Garp is in a dilemma. His grandson and son are here, how can he let go? Previous chapter next chapter advertisement Ron's beating was. The old Marines present felt embarrassed, cheeks flushed. Don't dare to look directly, quickly look away and look to the other side. I have to admit that this Inspector General is really cruel. Let me go. Boa Hancock's face turned pale, a cry of terror. This is in public, it's so embarrassing, bang bang bang. Ron didn't reply at all, his hands didn't stop. In addition to feeling a little red on the face, Boa Hancock. I found that other places were also red, no I can't go on any longer. This time I promise him first. Think of this. Boa Hancock gritted his teeth and seemed to have gone through a hard ideological struggle. Then he said, from now on, I will never look up or down at anyone at the Marine headquarters. Is this okay? Boa Hancock's voice was extremely high, almost shouting. Ron nodded. Wouldn't it be okay if it was like this earlier? Then he put away his hand. There's still residual warmth in my hands. Then, the nano suit on the chest turned into a chair again. Drove Ron back to the original location, and Boa Hancock stood there. It's not that she doesn't want to ride, 107, and it was so painful that I couldn't sit down. This time, Boa Hancock no longer has her arms crossed and her head raised, looking the most beautiful woman in the world. This scene made all the Marine executives dumbfounded. Ron knocked on the table and then said calmly to everyone. Now it's just you two Shichibukai. You should also know what happened to the remaining Shichibukai. Bartholomew Kuma will be executed tomorrow along with Ace. As for the one with broken legs outside, I'll deal with him later. I think your two crimes are not very serious, so I'll give you a chance. If you formally surrender to Marine now and perform well in tomorrow's battle, then I will let you live. Ron gave the two of them a chance to be recruited. After Ron's thunderous method just now, think of what happened to Doflamingo. Now Mihawk and Hancock know that if they don't agree at this time, they may not be able to get out of here alive. The Empress also realized how terrifying Ron was at this moment. After hesitating for a moment, he agreed, but Mihawk looked at the female swordsman behind Ron. He spoke directly. No problem. Advertisement, but before that, I want to compete with this woman. As a great swordsman, when he saw Tashigi, I feel like this woman is not simple. Especially that knife. Hawkeye was curious. Ron nodded. Then he waved. Tashigi, it's time to test your learning results. Go ahead. Yes. Tashigi holds Xiaoyu Shiger in his hand. Step forward without any fear. At this moment, Tashigi was full of energy. Stand opposite Hawkeye. His momentum was not inferior to that of his opponent at all. But their reputations are completely different. Hawkeye is recognized as the world's best swordsman, while Tashigi is just a little-known sergeant. Before today, Hawkeye didn't even know there was such a person. Can this Tashigi do it? I can't say for sure. Before Lucci fights Doflamingo, do you think Lucci can do it? It makes sense. People trained by the Inspector General cannot be judged by common sense. Arriving at the competition ground, Counselor He and Sengoku couldn't help but say. This battle attracted countless Marine soldiers to watch. They were preparing for tomorrow's battle, but at this time, I was attracted by this competition. Isn't this Tashigi? How dare she duel with Hawkeye? Yes. That's the #1 swordsman in the world. This is not on the same level at all. Strike an egg against a stone. Many of these Marines knew Tashigi, so they couldn't help but be a little worried. But, Hawkeye was attentive at the moment. He didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. He could feel the aura radiating from Tashigi. You are also a subordinate of the bald Inspector General. Hawkeye pulled out the black blade behind him, held it with both hands, and faced Tashigi. Tashigi just said calmly, she is the maid of the Lord Inspector. Mihawk looked in Ron's direction, then he said. That companion of yours just now took 10 seconds to deal with Doflamingo. How long are you prepared to spend in this battle? Tashigi slowly extended a finger. Hawkeye couldn't help but smile. How about 1 minute? I'm quite confident, unexpectedly, Tashigi said. One move. As soon as this statement came out, Evil Eye couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, then glanced upward slightly with the corner of his mouth. Smiled and said, you two are indeed subordinates of the bald Inspector General, and your tone is the same, but you seem to be more confident than him. Tashigi is not talking. Advertisement slowly pulled out Xiaoyi Shiger's sword from its sheath. Holding the knife in one hand, he pointed it at Evil Eye. The other hand holds the wrist holding the knife. Hawkeye felt the powerful aura on the opponent's sword blade. Don't dare to neglect. Concentrate and use 100% of your strength. Then he swung forward forcefully. The huge light blue slash was like opening up the world. It's as if the heaven and earth are divided into two. The cutting speed is extremely fast. The huge wind pressure made the surprised soldiers around them grin from ear to ear. He is worthy of being the world's best swordsman. This slash is too powerful. This is simply impossible to prevent. However, Tashigi opposite him took a deep breath. He placed his left hand on the wrist of his right hand holding the knife. Shout loudly. Bankai. The next moment, Xiaoyi Shiger burst out with intense light. Crescent slash. The half-moon-shaped slash was swung with a sword. Same direction, almost instantly, he hit Hawkeye's slash. Hawkeye's slashing attack had been extremely domineering just now, but this time he couldn't make any progress. A violent explosion occurred after the two collided. Hawkeye immediately backhand and sheathed the knife. There was a roar, a bottomless ravine appeared between the two of them. Mihawk was stunned. Although this attack did not hurt him, he blocked it. But he already knew he didn't win. Are you really his maid? Hawkeye said in disbelief. Yes, Tashigi nodded and put away the knife. You're good. True to my word, I'm willing to surrender to Marine. Hawkeye sighed. This battle is over. The whole place was in an uproar. The Marine soldiers watching the battle all looked confused. They never expected it. Not long ago, Tashigi was about the same strength as him. He is actually now as good as Hawkeye. What kind of terrifying rate of progress is this? Sengoku and others were too shocked to shut up. The performance of Lucci and Tashigi today really shocked them. He couldn't help but look at Ron. How is this Inspector General trained? Now, these two Shichibukai have basically been ordered to peace. However, this is only temporary and will have to be reformed in the future. Ron patted Tashigi on the shoulder and said earnestly, don't imitate Lucci, he is more talented than you. Advertisement for Tashigi's talent, it will take some time to surpass Hawkeye. Tashigi. I will continue to work hard Inspector General and defeat Hawkeye next time. Sengoku, do you have anything else to say? If not, let's adjourn the meeting. Ron sat on the nano chair, glanced at Sengoku and said. Sengoku was speechless for a while. This meeting was nominally held by him, but in fact it was controlled by this guy. Just follow this guy's lead the whole time, however, it also achieved unprecedented results at the time. Before this, Sengoku actually couldn't imagine that two Shichibukai could surrender so quickly. Now I'm not afraid that they won't have any second thoughts in tomorrow's battle. Thinking about it carefully, I have already finished explaining what I should have explained just now. Tomorrow is the battle with Whitebeard. Let everyone go to rest early. Then Sengoku said, let's adjourn, at this time. Suddenly the phone in my hand rang. Hello? Is this Magellan? Sengoku said first. Sengoku, something happened in the underwater prison. A group of revolutionary troops suddenly broke in, cooperated with the human demon king Liyingwei inside, and took away a large number of imprisoned revolutionary troops. And he let Shichibukai Kaishu Jinbei go. The leaders are Straw Hat Luffy and Drago. Hear this, Sengoku gasped. He couldn't help but glare at Garp. Luffy's goal should be to save Ace. Sengoku couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, I listened to Ron's advice and took Ace to Marine Headquarters Marineford in advance. Otherwise, if Ace was rescued before Summer War, Marine would become a joke. Are the casualties okay? Sengoku asked. Magellan sighed and said. They moved extremely fast, and 3.9 had a very strong purpose, just to save Ace and the revolutionary troops. After discovering that Ace was not there, they rescued the revolutionary troops and quickly evacuated. The casualties were not huge, but the underwater prison was severely damaged by their cooperation inside and outside. Sengoku snorted and looked at Garp. Damn the monkey family, look at how heavy your good grandson and son are. Garp could only scratch his head and laugh. Ha ha ha, they're actually together. This is something I didn't expect. Sengoku rolled his eyes at Garp, then he ordered. Magellan, arrest them immediately. Before he finished speaking, Ron interrupted directly. No need. Let Magellan withdraw, no need to chase. Sengoku was a little confused and asked, why, did you just let them run away? Ron shook his head and smiled. Don't worry, they can't escape. They'll definitely come to Marineford tomorrow. Luffy is here to save Ace, and Talog is here to save Bartholomew Kuma from us. So, they will definitely come tomorrow. We can just wait until they throw themselves into the trap. Why bother chasing after them? Yeah, Garp, you won't show mercy to either of them tomorrow. Ron looked at Garp with amusement and said, 094. At the top of the battle, the White Regiment attacked. Ron ordered Pluton to fire. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement. Suddenly Ron asked. Garp waved his hand quickly, with a righteous and selfless expression, he said. Whether it's my son coming or my grandson coming. Come and beat me up, old man. Keep them from taking the right path. My beloved Iron Fist, help them wake up. This impassioned speech. Garp's whole body seemed to be glowing with the light of justice. The light of righteousness shines on Garp. Make those around you stand in awe. Even Kizaru almost believed it. Kizaru twisted his mouth, touched his chin, and looked at Garp. He thought to himself, you are also an experienced actor, but you are so good, I believe everything you say. Ron patted Garp on the shoulder, he said earnestly. Then it depends on your performance. Don't let me down, Garp. Garp's old face darkened. I have a bad feeling. It seems that in this summer war, the Inspector General will definitely keep an eye on him. What should I do? After all, my son and grandson are here. No matter what, a bowl of water must be balanced. Everyone has to let go at least a little. Then, Ron waved his hand and called Smoker over. Since the last time I asked Smoker to send Ace to Marine Headquarters. Ron never called him again, as the first batch of Marine soldiers transformed by Ron's education. In fact, Smoker is the most successful one. It can be seen from the way he is wearing it at the moment. He was dressed neatly in Marine clothes, the cigar he often held in his mouth was gone, and his hair was neatly combed. It's like he was from the 15th Honor Guard team. Ron glanced at Smoker, very satisfied. Smoker, have you seen the Pluton number being used outside? From now on, that is my main ship. I now appoint you as the captain of my main ship. From today on, you will help me take care of my ship. I heard Ron entrusting him with such an important job. Smoker was extremely excited. This is ancient weapon. The Inspector General can entrust such an important task to himself. It's enough to show your trust in yourself. Yes. Smoker agreed immediately. You go and take the people to clean up the Pluton first and replenish the ammunition. In tomorrow's summer war, the Pluton will fire the first shot. Yes. Smoker didn't expect that he would fire the first shot tomorrow. This time I was even more excited. It seems that the Inspector General thinks highly of himself. Guaranteed to complete the mission. After Smoker gave the order, he retreated excitedly. Advertisement. He immediately took his Marine soldiers and moved them all to the Pluton. Starting today, They officially became Ron's ship guards. Ron then remembered that this kind of organizational personnel transfer must be made by Marshal Marine. So he asked symbolically, Sengoku, I want Smoker to station the ship, no problem. Sengoku's old face darkened. Mouth Kakuzu couldn't help but twitch twice. Sengoku, you have already finished the personnel arrangements. Are you here to ask me? What else can I say? Can I still say no? You are not sincerely asking me if I am okay. Just inform me, I'm the marshal, so let's just put my name on it. You are the standing marshal, Sengoku sighed and then said. Then let's arrange it this way. But the Pluton is not an ordinary thing, it is an ancient weapon that everyone wants to compete with. Are you so confident about leaving him in Smoker's hands? Ron looked at the dark battleship in the distance and the busy Smoker and others on it. Smiled and said, I'm pretty good at judging people. Sengoku, what I mean is, shouldn't you confiscate such a good thing? Why did you keep it yourself? You should at least hand it over to Marine Headquarters. Its use should be the responsibility of Marine Headquarters, right? Why has it become your personal property? Complaints are complaints. After all, Ron found the Pluton, and Ron was not under the jurisdiction of the Marine Headquarters. So Sengoku also knew that he had no right to get the Pluton back. Sengoku, don't let up tonight. We must strengthen arrangements in the surrounding sea areas. In case they launch a raid at night, Ron thought for a while and said. Although the attack in the anime is during the day, it is still best to be careful. After all, because of his own appearance, the world line of One Piece has shifted. Many things have changed. Every character here is a living individual, not a virtual character in a comic book, so they will make some changes based on the current situation. For example, the people who attacked the underwater prison this time became Luffy and Dorag. These are some changes in the world line due to Ron's influence. Sengoku nodded. Don't worry, I have planted no less than 100 hidden sentries around. Once they step into the surrounding waters, they will definitely cause alarm. All the fortifications will then go into battle. Ron nodded, well done. Don't forget to change the first defense of the soldiers at 12 o'clock so as not to overwork them. The soldiers' continuous patrol time should not exceed 6 hours. They must change their defenses every 6 hours and give them rest. Sengoku was slightly surprised. Advertisement, he didn't consider this. He had never cared about the fatigue of soldiers before. They are always asked to work overtime on patrol. Ron said this, he couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. This Inspector General can really point out a lot of problems to him. I know, I will inform you shortly, after the second round of soldiers changing defenses. Ron felt like he was resting. It looks like Whitebeard and the others won't be coming tonight. These guys still chose to attack during the day. Early the next morning, the sun is shining brightly as always. The whole sea is still calm, it was eerily quiet. It's like the calm before the storm, at this time. Sengoku's office suddenly received a message. This caused Sengoku to start pacing back and forth. Come here, call all the Marine executives over for a meeting. Call the Inspector General? Sengoku hesitated for a moment, then nodded. 04. After a while, 3 admirals, Garp and Crane, plus Ron, all arrived. Garp said helplessly, what happened? Why are you so anxious? Sengoku sighed and said, Whitebeard should be nearby. Several of the hidden sentinels I had buried nearby disappeared inexplicably. But no trace of the Whitebeard pirates was found. I just received a report today that several warships sent out to track the Whitebeard pirates also mysteriously disappeared into the sea. Hear the news. Everyone gasped. This means that Whitebeard has already started to take action, maybe he is near them now. It seems that this is to catch them off guard, but now we don't know the specific location of Whitebeard. How to respond? I called you here this time to analyze where by who is now. His fruit ability is so pervert that if a sudden attack were launched, we would probably be caught off guard. So it's important to be able to grasp Whitebeard's movements in advance. Sengoku said very seriously. Staff officer, he looked at the hidden sentries that had been removed on the map. He couldn't help but frown. The directions in which these secret whistles are pulled out are not regular at all. It seems that Whitebeard wants to confuse us in this way, making it impossible for us to tell which direction they are attacking from. It's also impossible to judge the time of his attack. This cunning old fox. As a result, these Marine executives began to deduce Whitebeard's location based on the information provided by these secret sentries. But after thinking for a long time, there was no clue. Ron knocked on the table. Advertisement attracted everyone's attention. Then, he took out the feng shui compass. This is? Sengoku saw this kind of thing for the first time. Looks like a record pointer, only larger. These 503 can find Whitebeard's location. And how close he is to us. After Ron finished speaking, he thought Whitebeard silently in his mind, and at the same time, Whitebeard's appearance appeared in his mind. The next moment, the pointer on the feng shui compass started to rotate. Then it points only to the southeast. The 3 numbers above also scrolled to 03. Only 3,000 meters? So close, isn't it already at the doorstep of our home? Ron couldn't help but frown, immediately ordered. 3,000 meters southeast. Inform the entire army and enter combat status immediately. Whitebeard will be here soon, as soon as this statement came out. Sengoku and others had no time to wonder how such a small compass could measure the position. But they still chose to believe Ron. Start executing the command immediately. Suddenly, the entire marine was mobilized. All soldiers are ready to go. Firearms come to court. All the cannons on the fortifications turned and pointed to the southeast. Cannonballs go to court. The entire army entered a fighting state in an instant. Smoker pilots the Pluton, stopped at Marine Fando Inner Harbor. At the same time, the dark cannon on the ship was also aimed in the southeast direction. And the energy storage is completed, just waiting for Ron's order. Although the sea looked calm there was nothing there. 3,000 meters is not that far on the sea. It's easy to see, but now the sea is indeed empty. There was no sign of a fleet at all. So, where are the Whitebeard pirates? Just when everyone was confused, suddenly, the sea churned. The seawater began to bubble gurglingly as if it were boiling. Although everyone was prepared, they couldn't help but be surprised. Next moment, 3 huge ships emerged directly from the bottom of the sea. Just like that, we arrived at the inner harbor of Marineland directly and quietly. It is the Moby Dick of the Whitebeard pirates, coming. Ron ordered directly. Smoker, fire, 095. Aren't you active and waiting to be beaten? Kizaru turned into a model worker and took the lead. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement Smoker has been waiting for this moment for a long time. The Pluton's energy has been reserved, already ready to go. The Pluton uses technology far beyond this world and uses a special energy conversion device. Now, this cannon, which is as thick as a warship, is aimed in the direction of the Whitebeard pirates. The muzzle suddenly glowed. Countless energy gathered at the muzzle. The entire gun barrel roared. It was like the sound of countless energies being continuously compressed. Even standing next to him, you can feel the whole air vibrating. The pressure of having your eardrum pierced, it left everyone breathless. What a strong energy. Smoker's expression changed and he immediately ordered his subordinates to leave the deck. Don't stand near the cannon, according to the density of this energy. If the cannon is fired later, just the energy emitted is enough to shock people to death. So you must not stand next to the cannon at this time. The further away the better. At Ron's order, Smoker determined that the direction the cannon was aiming was the direction of the Whitebeard pirates' fleet. So I pressed the launch button without hesitation. And at this moment, the 3 capital ships of the Whitebeard pirates just emerged from the bottom of the sea. The coating then cracked. The strongest man in the world is holding a long knife and standing on the bow of the ship. The fierce sea breeze kept roaring by. The wind made his cloak rustle, and the waves around him surged into the sky. Edward Newgate still stood on the bow of the ship, motionless despite weather. Staring brightly ahead, but this time, Marco suddenly said. No, Dad, what do you think that is? The Pluton is just too huge. It is as big as more than 10 marine warships, it is naturally much larger than Moby Dick. And it was still pitch black, the entire hull is completely black. So it's really obvious on the sea, like a mobile bunker. All ships had to look up when passing him, it feels like an ant looking at an elephant. The sense of pressure brought about by this volume is the most intuitive. It is also the easiest to notice, and now Marco noticed. Whitebeard followed the direction Marco pointed and looked into the distance. When I saw this huge black ship clearly, I couldn't help but take a breath. Pluton number. How is it possible? Where did they find it? Wasn't this thing destroyed 800 years ago? With Whitebeard's knowledge, of course he recognized it at a glance. Advertisement as the saying goes, insiders look at the door and outsiders look at the excitement. When he saw the huge gun barrel on the Pluton facing him, Whitebeard secretly said something bad. Quick, all ships separate immediately. Whitebeard hasn't finished speaking yet. I only felt a white light appear at the barrel. The Pluton is charging up. That's too late. Whitebeard stuck the long knife directly into the boat. Then he clenched his fists, the veins are popping out. The cloak behind him was rustled by the sea breeze. Then, it slammed into the surrounding air. The surrounding air instantly shattered. Violent vibrations spread to the sea, almost instantly. The entire sea is directly divided into 2. Huge waves rose into the sky. Directly lifted up the 2 auxiliary ships, and almost at the same time. The Pluton's white energy cannon has been fired. Extremely fast. The friction in the air produced a harsh buzzing sound, and the surrounding air was distorted. The energy cannon rushed straight towards Whitebeard's 3 battleships. Whitebeard just punched hard, the waves set off split to both sides. At this critical moment, the 3 warships were pushed directly to both sides. The white energy cannon went right through the middle. A narrow escape from death, just a little bit different. If it were just a little bit later, the 3 warships would be strung together by laser cannons. Explodes instantly. Thanks to Whitebeard's quick reaction, he immediately used the power of the vibration to stir up waves and violently separate the ship. Only then did he barely escape the Pluton's attack. At this time, there was a rumble from behind. The Pluton's energy cannon fell on the sea behind the fleet. Suddenly, a huge hole was drilled into the entire sea. Straight through the bottom of the sea seemed to have been penetrated. A bottomless pit appeared. The seawater formed a spiral shape, constantly rotating. A uzumaki was formed and poured into it. The waves surged into the sky, and the water fell into the hollow, making a rumbling sound like water flying down 3,000 feet. You can see how deep it is. This made Phoenix Marco take a breath. Is this the Pluton number? This is the legendary ancient weapon? I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Sure enough, the legend is true. This cannon is enough to destroy a country. Fortunately, Dad reacted quickly just now, otherwise, we might have been annihilated as soon as we came out. Whitebeard frowned. Be careful of his second shot. Advertisement, before he fires the second shot, order all the fleets to surface and rush directly to Marineford. As long as our people collide with them, they will not dare to attack with the Pluton. Whitebeard was extremely calm and immediately made the most correct decision at this time. Have to say, who can dominate this ocean, who can sit on the 4th ring, who is not smart? Subsequently, at Marco's command, on the surrounding sea, fleets of ships from New World quickly began to float. A total of 43 ships, every ship here, pulled into the New World, is a big name resounding in the New World. They are all members of the Whitebeard pirates' large fleet. At Whitebeard's command, everyone gathered from all over the world within 3 days. Without hesitation, he followed Whitebeard and went directly to the most difficult place in the world to conquer. These guys are all people who lick blood with their swords, and each of them has at least 100 lives under their hands. There is nothing in this world that scares them. Their dream is to follow their father, even if they pay for it with their lives. Wherever Daddy orders them, that's when they wield their swords and drink blood. Kill. We need to help Dad be the first to rush to Marineford. The first one to rush forward is our pirate group. No, it's us. I'm going to kill all these Marines and rescue Brother Ace. These guys faced the impregnable marine fortifications and were not afraid at all. A total of 43 large fleet members were spread all over the surrounding waters. Under the order of Dad, they dispersed in a swarm and rushed into the inner harbor of Malinfandugo. Looking at the gang of mad dog-like pirates, Ron's right hand was half raised. Put it down quickly, and at the same time, the soldiers who had been paying attention to Ron's instructions immediately understood. Then he shouted, "Full salvo!" In an instant, all the cannons of Whitebeard's fleet were aimed southeast. Again at the same time, the order to launch was received. Bang bang bang. Thousands of cannons, a huge volley of cannons and fireworks was staged. The secret that covers the entire sky, all shells. This time, no matter how sparse their pirate group's branches were, there was nothing they could do to avoid being hit by cannonballs. These pirate ships that were still on the sea were greeted by cannonballs like a violent storm. It's just that they are not just for free. There are many pirates on the ship with a bounty of hundreds of millions. Start thinking of various ways to fight the cannonballs in the air. 1 round 2 wheels, 3 wheels, a full 18 rounds of volleys. Thousands of shells each time, but even these pirate groups are all famous and prominent figures in the New World. But under this round of bombing, we haven't yet reached the inner harbor pier. 5 pirate ships have been lost, looking at the debris on the ground. Advertisement Whitebeard's expression immediately turned gloomy. Did not think of, there is no real contact with the other party yet. As a result of this round after round of long-range attacks, 5 pirate ships were killed. However, under their desperate sprint just now, several other pirate ships survived today, already approaching the port. Start landing on the beach. Have to say, these pirates are really bloodthirsty and crazy, with no fear in their eyes. There is only killing, as pirate ships docked one after another. One after another, pirates jumped down from above and began to sprint towards the execution platform crazily. At this time, Whitebeard suddenly frowned, some bad premonition. No, why aren't there any Marines guarding this shore? It stands to reason that they should rush down and stop us. Where are the people? Now, half of the pirates had already rushed onto the inner harbor pier and started waving their swords. Running towards the execution platform, while running, laughing wildly, and shouting. Haha, monos, this is too smooth, isn't it? Don't these Marines dare to come over and kill us? Are you scared out of your wits by us? Ha ha ha. However, at this time, suddenly, a yellow light flashed. Kizaru jumped directly into the air. The Inspector General is supervising the war. If you don't show your seriousness, you're waiting to be beaten. Kizaru had already felt that Ron's eyes were always passing over him. His PTSD happened again, based on the principle of putting in more effort and getting beaten less. Kizaru seemed very active in this battle. He can be called a model worker on the battlefield. Anyway, we were fighting the Whitebeard pirates, not Luffy. No one expected that Marine would be the first to attack. Akainu was confused. Shouldn't I be playing here? According to the plan, at this point it was up to him to initiate the attack. Unexpectedly, Kizaru beat me to it. I saw Kizaru jump into the air. Aim at the direction the pirates are logging in. Cross your arms. Then, starting from the finger, a dazzling yellow light burst out. The yellow light grew bigger and bigger, gradually covered Kizaru's entire body. Immediately afterwards, the center of the huge yellow light source began to spray yellow light points downward. 8-foot beautiful Magatama, in an instant. Countless yellow light spots were like heavy rain, saturating the pirates who were sprinting below. 096. Kizaru was kicked away by Marco. Dare to act. Ron teaches you how to be a good person on the spot. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement Sengoku looked surprised. Kizaru worked too hard today, didn't he? Not like this guy's character. He actually rushed out first. It really surprised me. I thought this guy was good at fishing in all kinds of ways. Akainu snorted coldly, then he said, this guy probably has a brain convulsion, right? Staff officer, he is more sharp-eyed. The first thing I noticed was that Ron was looking at Kizaru. Said thoughtfully, is it possible that Kizaru is acting so abnormally because the Inspector General is supervising the war? Just now I saw the Inspector General glance at him casually, and then Kizaru rushed out as if he had been given a shot of blood. This is strange, that's why staff he thinks so. Sengoku nodded and said, that makes sense. After all, this guy Kizaru went on a mission with the Inspector General. You must have learned the lesson from the last mission. That's why I'm working so hard this time. Akainu snorted unmoved. Then he said, this guy just has a guilty conscience. The Inspector General just glanced here casually. That guy Kizaru had something in his mind, so he thought the Inspector General was staring at him. Obviously a task has been assigned to him, but when he got nervous, he probably rushed out early. Akainu knows Kizaru relatively well. Ron's eyes passed over them just now. But neither he nor Aokiji thought much about it because they had nothing to worry about. Only this guy Kizaru got nervous and rushed out when he wasn't supposed to play. It is self-evident what this means. Just because there is something wrong in his heart, Tuanli feels that the Inspector General's eyes are always staring at him. Just like during the exam, if you find that the Proctor 383 is always staring at you and standing next to you, you will immediately answer the question seriously. Even if you don't know the question in front of you, you still have to bury your head and make blind gestures. Garp understands this very well, nodding secretly. Looking at Kizaru jumping into the air, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Are you going too far? Now, Kizaru jumped into the air. The fierce sea breeze will rustle and dance wildly. Looking condescendingly at the members of the Whitebeard pirates who were landing on the beach. I couldn't help but darken my face. Suddenly I remembered that it was time for Akainu to appear. In fact, Kizaru already regretted it when he first jumped up. Isn't I a little anxious? Having been stared at by the Inspector General just now, I rushed out nervously. Never mind, anyway, I have come out, so let's attack seriously. Kizaru could feel a pair of eyes looking at him from behind. At this time, he had already appeared on the stage. If the matter was ignored, the Inspector General would probably fly over and kick him in the waist. Thinking of this, Kizaru's 8-foot Magatama has been charged up. Cross your arms. Starting from the finger, a dazzling yellow light burst out. Advertisement: the yellow light grew bigger and bigger. Gradually cover Kizaru's entire body. Side by side with the noon sun, it is particularly dazzling. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. Next moment, the golden light spots are like heavy rain. Madness poured out. There are a lot of pirates down there. At this moment, they were cheering and charging towards the execution platform. Suddenly, it felt like there was something so dazzling in the sky. He looked up suddenly. Only then did he realize that there were countless golden light spots, like hailstones. Smashing them down like crazy. No, it's Admiral Kizaru. Marine is so unethical. He is an admiral the moment he appears. Not that much. This is equivalent to fighting landlord. Someone throws a 3, but ends up throwing out 2 kings and blowing them up. Dodge quickly. This is Admiral's attack. They don't dare to take it head on. The pirates who were still charging arrogantly immediately began to flee. The golden light spots have great impact. It was like a cannonball hitting the ground. Every impact made a big crater. As long as these pirates are hit once, they're basically gone. Suddenly, the entire dock rang out with screams one after another. Now, on the Moby Dick, Whitebeard frowned, looking at this scene with great displeasure. The admiral was dispatched from the beginning? It doesn't look like Sengoku's fighting style. Could it be that someone else is taking command? Based on Whitebeard's experience of playing against Sengoku many times, he felt that the command style this time was a little different. When did this Perusalino become so serious? If this kid is allowed to continue his mischief, it will be difficult for my sons to log in. Go and stop him. Whitebeard stood upright on the deck, expressionless, and said in a majestic tone. Yes. Marco took the order. His expression instantly became serious. I didn't expect to encounter such a big trouble at the beginning. If Kizaru is not solved, not to mention rescuing Ace. Even landing on the beach is difficult, and you can't even get off the boat. How do you get to the execution platform to rescue Ace? This Kizaru, Marco, will handle it. Marco decided to open the way for his brothers. Leap in the air. In an instant, light blue flames directly surrounded the whole body. Then his arms turned into a pair of huge wings, and he flapped with all his strength. Huge reverse thrust, make huge waves. The whole body instantly rose into the air. Turned into a wisp of light blue light, he rushed towards Kizaru quickly. Advertisement have to say, fruits with the ability to fly are extremely rare in the pirate world. The Marco type is even rarer. Zone Devil Fruit is a phantom beast in the form of a phoenix. In addition to giving him the ability to fly, this fruit also has powerful recovery abilities. Basically immune to death, immediately afterwards. In the eyes of everyone, a ray of light blue light kept dodging in the air, avoiding all yellow light point attacks. Being able to rush in front of Kizaru under such a density of BFCB attacks. This shows how powerful Marco's observation hockey is. Don't stop my brothers from logging in, Kizaru. Marco laughed loudly, subsequently, a flying kick. Boom. Kizaru was kicked directly. Kizaru interrupted the casting process, and the attack of the 8-foot Magatama also disappeared at the same time. Kizaru stretched out his hand to block Marco's kick. He said with a crooked mouth, it turns out to be Marco. The Phoenix's ability is really terrifying. Marco smiled, and then the strength in his legs continued to increase. At the same time he said, let me, Marco, stop you. I am your opponent. As soon as he finished speaking, the force under Marco's feet increases to ultimate. A whip kick, bang, it seems that it cannot withstand the powerful impact. Kizaru turned into a stream of light, falling directly from the sky. Hit a turret, in an instant, buildings collapse. Debris flew everywhere, suddenly smoke filled the air. Marco flapped his wings and stayed in the air. A smile appeared on his face. Marine Admiral is not as scary as the legend says. At the same time, he shouted to the pirates below. Brothers, you can rush forward with confidence now, go ahead and rescue Ace. This kick. The morale of the pirates immediately increased. As expected of Marco, the captain of the first team. He's as strong as Admiral, he was able to stop that monster Kizaru. Great, with Marco here, that Kizaru guy won't be much of a threat. The Marine Admiral is nothing more than that. The captain of our first team is still very powerful, he can be kicked away with one kick. Ha ha ha, go, attack Malinfenduo and rescue Ace. The pirates, whose morale soared, waved the sword in their hands and became more arrogant. The scene where he was beaten by Admiral Kizaru and ran away just now seemed as if it had never happened. Advertisement at this moment, a huge sea of people gathered again. Even the expression on Whitebeard's face relaxed. Akainu took a step forward, said to Ron, sure enough, Kizaru is unreliable, so let me do it. Ron waved his hand with a gloomy expression, then he said. This Kizaru really cares about eating rather than fighting. Subsequently, his tone became much colder, take the front road. Perusalino, get out of here. Kizaru, who was still in the ruins at this moment, became alert when he heard these words. Oops. No one was paying attention just now, and subconsciously took advantage of it again. Kizaru has learned it through muscle memory, always subconsciously find the laziest way. After being kicked by Marco just now, his body flew away instinctively. Because this can take this opportunity to escape from the battlefield. Stay away from the center of the battlefield. Find a place where no one is paying attention, start OBB, just fool around a few times. This trick has been tried many times in large battles. Kizaru has been doing this all the time, and it has not been discovered yet, and no one has discovered it. Therefore, the body subconsciously reacted this way just now. Now, Ron was heard roaring. Then I suddenly remembered that the Inspector General was still there supervising the war. His eyes are so sharp, he must have seen it. It's over now. Kizaru is a spirit. He stood up directly from the ruins. Ron came to Kizaru. In public, he punched Kizaru in the abdomen with a crushing punch. Kizaru bent over in pain. Kizaru, if you get beaten up by Marco again, how about trying? Kizaru was shocked and could not help but feel chills running down his spine when he heard these words. Then he immediately said, I understand. If you understand, then hurry back to the battlefield and don't let me say it a second time. As soon as Ron finished speaking, Kizaru immediately gave a break. Turned into a stream of light, soaring straight into the sky. Quickly returned to Marco. This scene just now. Everyone saw it. Especially the people in the white group were all confused. Who is this person, so fierce? Marco came to his senses, looking at Kizaru appearing in front of him. You are worthy of being my opponent, but, even if you come, I will still stop you. Kizaru frowned and his tone changed. With your strength, can you stop me? I can only say I'm sorry. This time there is someone to supervise the battle, so the butcher will have to take it seriously. 097. Kizaru. I've done all the work, and you've done all the pretending. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement Kizaru was suddenly beaten by the Inspector General, making all Marine soldiers shudder. It was the first time for many soldiers to see Ron supervising a battle. They never expected that he would be so strict. At this time, everyone was very energetic and did not dare to be careless in the slightest. They don't want to be like Kizaru. I'm sorry, Marco. If someone supervises the battle this time, I'm going to take action for real. Kizaru's expression rarely became so serious. What are you talking about? Marco was confused and didn't know what this guy Kizaru was talking about. Didn't you mean it just now? This is Summit War? Don't talk about how you let off steam just now. I don't believe anyone would dare not use all their strength in such a large-scale battle. I'm saying you can only stop here. When Kizaru finished saying this, his whole temperament suddenly changed, with a lazy and wretched look. In an instant, he turned into a capable and wretched person. The whole person is different. Everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but shudder. The man who was staying in the sky at this moment. It feels so oppressive, like the blazing sun. Is this the oppressive feeling of Marine Admiral? At this moment, whether it was the Marine soldiers around or the pirates charging below, they all felt suffocating. Seriously, Kizaru, his whole body is glowing. Kizaru, you know I can't stop here. No matter what the cost, we, the Whitebeard pirates, will rescue Ace. Marco flapped his wings, blue flames burned around him. At this moment, it's right across from Kizaru, not retreating at all. Go head to head with Kizaru. I don't care you were here to save. If it were normal, I would have no interest in fighting you. Perhaps he's already hiding nearby and paddling by this time. But this time, are you saying you are unlucky, or am I unlucky? Did you see the bald Inspector General behind you? If I let you pass today, I will die miserably. Kizaru just finished speaking. Marco also looked at Ron. It's him? I see. No wonder you suddenly changed your temper. Marco also heard about what happened in the past few days, so naturally he had heard about Ron. It is said that he has been supervising marine operations. But Marco didn't expect that this person could even supervise Admiral. And the scariest thing is that this guy doesn't seem to be very scared. At this time, Kizaru suddenly disappeared into the air. 8-foot mirror, continuously refracting in the air. The distance between him and Marco was shortened in an instant. Almost at the same time, at the same angle, advertisement. Kicked directly towards Marco. At this moment, Marco's expression changed drastically. So fast, but, have you forgotten that I have kicked from this angle before? It won't do any good if you kick me with the same attack now. Subsequently, Marco turned around and kicked, causing Kizaru's legs to collide with each other. Two people in the same posture. Right. I'm sorry, Marco, I'm still a little better than you. The words just fell. Kizaru touched his chin and twisted his waist suddenly. His huge strength directly defeated Marco. Marco's leg was kicked back in an instant. Marco's expression changed drastically. Unexpectedly, the same attack at this moment had no effect on Kizaru. This guy really didn't use his full strength just now. Marco was outmatched in strength, flying out directly. There was a loud bang. It hit the spot where Kizaru landed just now. Suddenly smoke and dust filled the air. Next moment, a blue flame shot out from the smoke. A pair of huge wings penetrated the smoke. Soar in the air again. As expected of the phoenix fruit, it's really troublesome. Kizaru touched his chin and said with a crooked mouth. Marco wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The attack just now did not cause him any harm. It's just that his recovery ability is fast enough. This Kizaru. Really awesome. It seemed that he felt the impatience of the gaze behind him. Kizaru dare not neglect. The battle must be resolved quickly. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. Kizaru saw this and crossed his arms again. Golden light burst out from the chest. Next moment, it turned into a huge halo like a 4-pointed star. Immediately afterwards, countless golden light spots like machine guns. Shooting at Marco wildly, it is different from the previous 8-foot Magatama. This time the attack was very focused, not as scattered as before. Marco relied on his devil fruit ability and directly chose to carry the 8-foot Magatama. It's useless Kizaru, you can't hurt me. Marco had an expression that said, what can you do to me? However, he just finished speaking. Suddenly, he felt a hand appear behind him and strangled his neck. And using armament hockey, the next moment, he was pressed down directly from the air. Bang! Marco fell heavily to the ground. The man behind it is none other than Kizaru. Advertisement at this moment, he was pinching the back of Marco's neck with one hand. His knee was on Marco's waist. What, when were you? Marco's expression changed drastically. He didn't realize when Kizaru moved behind him. Kizaru said calmly, "Of course I know that the 8-foot Megatama can't hurt you, so it's just a cover. My figure has long been hidden in the light, and the moment I approach you, I go around behind you." Click, the sea stone handcuffs were put on directly. This scene was visible to everyone. Marine's morale was boosted. The captain of the Whitebeard pirate squadron was actually knocked to the ground by Kizaru in just 2 moves. This made all the Marine soldiers cheer and cheer when they saw this scene. It's so inspiring. This is our Marine Admiral. This is the true strength of Admiral. Thanks to the Inspector General, they were able to see the true story of the Yellow Ape Man's descent. But the opposite is true. The morale of the pirates was directly hit hard. Before, when Marco kicked Kizaru away, their morale reached its peak. That was when they were at their most arrogant, but I never expected it. When Marine Admiral got serious, he turned out to be so powerful. Just drive their captain underground. Whitebeard couldn't help but frown. Unexpectedly, without even logging into the shore, 5 pirate ships had been lost, plus a captain. Whitebeard couldn't help but look at Ron. Under the supervision of this man, Kizaru's combat prowess was a bit exaggerated. Now, Ron happened to look at Whitebeard as well. Subsequently, Ron was followed by more than a dozen men in black. One step at a time, while walking towards the highest podium, he said calmly, "Asterisk asterisk asterisk, Edward Newgate, just an hors d'oeuvre before the war." Next, the battle officially begins. Ron didn't speak with much force, but his voice was clearly transmitted to every corner of the battlefield. Every soldier and every pirate can hear it, and hear it clearly. Whitebeard's expression changed after hearing this. After 18 rounds of artillery bombardment, 5 of his pirate ships were damaged. Admiral attacked and captured his squad leader, but this guy said that the battle had just begun. The violent attack just now turned out to be just an appetizer. How arrogant. Where's Ace? Where did you hide my son? Whitebeard frowned, looking at Ron coldly. He walked towards the podium step by step. He asked in a loud voice. The entire battlefield seemed so quiet that only Ron's footsteps could be heard. "Take it easy, Whitebeard. The fun has just begun." Subsequently, Ron snapped his fingers, in an instant. A large number of Marine soldiers appeared crazily on both sides. In the originally empty square, in an instant rows of Marine soldiers were ready to go. They were armed with swords, guns, and other various weapons. .00 advertisement in front of them, leading the charge was a Marine general level officer. Major to Vice Admiral. Everyone performs their duties and stands neatly in a row. Further up here, it is Shichibukai who has surrendered. Boa Hancock and Mahawk. The lineup suddenly emerged. Directly isolate everyone in Whitebeard at the dock. This turned out to be an ambush long ago, and at the same time. Ron finally reached the top position. There are 3 top chairs there. They belong to 3 admirals respectively. On top of it, there's a chair. And at this moment, Ron was sitting in the highest position. After Ron sat down, looking at Whitebeard, he smiled and made a sound. Then he said, "Come here, serve the main course." Yes, 6 CP9s bowed and saluted, solemn and majestic. Very ceremonial. Subsequently, then he escorted Ace, Pluton, and Bartholomew Kuma to the execution platform. The 3 people knelt neatly in a row, 6 execution soldiers. He held a total of 12 steel guns and held 3 people crosswise. "Dad." The first time Ace was escorted up, he saw the Whitebeard pirates at the port. I also saw the dad standing on the deck of the Moby Dick. I couldn't help but burst into tears as I shouted. "Whitebeard, you finally saw Ace." He couldn't help but smile. The voice was as loud as a bell and shouted, "Ace, wait a minute, Daddy is here to save you." Finally saw Ace. The entire Whitebeard pirates once again fell into madness. They shouted in unison. Rush to save Ace. Now the distance between them and the execution platform is only a few hundred meters. But in this square a few hundred meters away, there was a neat row of Marine soldiers. Like the Great Steel Wall, separate the two directly. Want to go and save Ace, it is necessary to break through the Marines' heavy defenses. Akainu, Kizaru, Aokiji, reset, Ron said loudly. Then the 3 of them quickly returned to their seats. Now between Ace and Whitebeard, what is separated is the combat power of the entire Marine. Ron looked at Whitebeard, said seriously, "Want to come over and rescue Ace?" "Sorry, the Marine ahead is closed to traffic." 098. Akainu meteor volcano affected the Marine soldier and was kicked away. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement facing Marine who stood in front of him like an iron wall. Whitebeard frowned slightly, but he also noticed an extremely important thing, that is, the bald Inspector General, who actually sat in the highest command position. Sitting below him was Marine 3 Admiral. This guy's power is too terrifying. Not only can he freely mobilize all of Marine's troops, but he can also make Sengoku stand aside and not dare to interfere. What is the origin of this guy? Diamond George came over and said, "Dad, it seems that guy has a very important position in Marine. Why don't we capture him? Then trade him for Ace." Because at this moment Diamond George discovered a problem, that is, there's Garp guarding Ace's execution platform. If you want to rush there, you must first pass through the impenetrable Marine defense, and finally kill Garp before you can rescue Ace. But if this bald man can be caught, it will be much easier to trade him for Ace. The main reason is that the White Group has never seen Ron take action and doesn't know his strength. Those who have seen Ron's skills are basically Marines. Whitebeard nodded. "Okay, you will be responsible for catching him later, and I will be responsible for attacking the execution platform and attracting the 3 admirals to you. Without the 3 admirals guarding the front, it shouldn't be a problem for you to catch him." Diamond George nodded, very sincerely, 210, said. "Absolutely no problem. Whitebeard is an extremely smart man who knows how to adapt to circumstances." Obviously, Ace's guard was too strict at this time. There is no way to rush there directly for rescue. So, he decided to take Diamond George's approach. Then, Whitebeard stuck the long knife into the ground. Looking at Sengoku, shout loudly, "Sengoku, you old man, don't you even have the power to control your own marine? It really disappoints me to be ignored by a brat." So discord. Sengoku's old face darkened. Whitebeard just finished speaking. Then he clenched his fists tightly. The huge force made his veins bulge. Then a strong wind came up. Whitebeard's clothes rustled behind him. I saw Whitebeard shout loudly. At the same time, two thick arms slammed down to both sides. It hit the air directly. Shock fruit ability activates. The entire air exploded instantly, and horn patterns appeared like cracked porcelain. Next moment, the lines suddenly spread outward from Whitebeard's fists. Immediately afterwards, huge vibrations are transmitted through the air to the sea surface. At this moment, the currents on both sides of Whitebeard's Moby Dick suddenly rose. Like a tsunami, instantly, waves of nearly 100 meters were set off. Advertisement: the highest point is even higher than the buildings in Linfondo. The rolling waves roared. The entire island where Marinfondo is located even trembled twice. Immediately afterwards, the wind blew violently and dark clouds gathered. Hundreds of meters of waves immediately submerged Marinfondo. Everyone present saw this scene and couldn't help but stop breathing. This is like a natural disaster. He is worthy of being called the strongest man. Just wave your hand to cause an earthquake or tsunami. An island can be flooded in an instant, too strong. The strongest man was angry. It seemed that he was going to drown Marinfondo with one blow. And Ron is sitting in the highest command position at this moment. Just said it softly. Aokiji. Next moment, Aokiji, whose name was called, immediately jumped into the air. It left a trail of icicles on the seats. The whole person has already flown into the air. Right in the middle of the huge waves on both sides. I saw Aokiji stretching out his arms. One hand points in one direction. Subsequently, there are words in his mouth, Ice Age. The next moment, two icicles suddenly stretched out from Aokiji's hands. Extremely fast, while the huge waves were about to be captured. Two icicles stuck directly into the waves, in an instant. With the icicle as the center, Ultimate's low temperature spreads rapidly. First, the areas touched by the ice freeze first. Immediately afterwards, it began to spread rapidly to the surroundings, in less than 3 seconds. The huge wave nearly 100 meters high was directly frozen into an ice wall. Whitebeard's plan fell through on the spot. The huge wave had now turned into ice and did not hit Marineford as he imagined. Ice imp. Whitebeard snorted coldly. At this moment, Aokiji has fallen from the sky. At his feet was the inner bay of Marineford. At the moment he was about to fall into the water. My hands suddenly downwards. Similarly, the pillar shot out from the palm of the hand again. It was suddenly inserted into the seawater. The same scene happened again. Ice Age. With Bingzu as the center, the entire ice sea spread rapidly. It only took a few seconds. All the seawater in the inner bay was frozen into ice. All ships, including the Whitebeard pirates, were instantly frozen in place. There is no way to move forward. Advertisement, Aokiji. Ron couldn't help but burst into anger. Who asked you to carry out unnecessary orders? Did I ask you to freeze the inner bay? Aren't you going to let the pirates come ashore? Trash. Come back. Ron looked unhappy, kicked Aokiji when he came back. This group of pirates was originally trying to land on the beach. Because there was no land, they had no way to fight on the ship. But now, Aokiji actually created a land for them. Allowing them to jump directly from the boat, step on the ice directly to the shore. As a war supervisor, Ron criticized Aokiji's stupid operation on the spot. Aokiji returned to his seat. When Ron said this, I felt that I had indeed done something wrong. What he originally wanted was to freeze all the other party's ships. But I didn't expect that doing so would actually make it easier for the other party to get ashore. Kizaru, who was sitting next to Aokiji, was originally waiting for the Inspector General to punish Aokiji with a heavy blow. After all, Aokiji made such a big mistake, but he never expected it. Ron actually just scolded him and gave him a simple kick. Didn't take action. This left Kizaru speechless. Kizaru. Why did I have to be beaten hard when I made a mistake, but Aokiji only got scolded and lightly kicked? Where is the law of heaven? The world is unfair. Why is it always me who gets hurt? However, this is not over yet. Diamond George's purpose has always been Ron. At this moment, the lake beneath my feet was frozen into ice by Aokiji. George, who had been suffering from being unable to go ashore. There was an immediate focus, jumped off the boat. Immediately afterwards, put your hands directly on the ice. A weeping willow tree is pulled upside down. A huge piece of ice was lifted directly from the solid ice surface. The entire block of ice is as big as a warship. It was actually dug out by Diamond George, which shows how huge this power is. Diamond George is very decisive. The moment he lifted the huge ice block, he threw it directly into the sky. And the direction he threw it, it happened to be in the direction where Ron was sitting. Such a big ice cube weighs more than 10,000 kilograms if it is smashed directly. It can directly smash people into meat pies. Huge ice blocks cut across the sky in a graceful arc. Everyone's eyes followed the movement of the ice. Diamond George couldn't help but smile. If this ice cube is smashed down, it will be over once and for all. But at this moment, Ron was still sitting on the top podium. There was no order from him. Advertisement 3 Admiral also stood still, and several men in black behind Ron also stood there straight. Even though this huge ice block is right in front of you, it will fall down soon. But there was no order from Ron. No one dared to move. And at this moment, Ron looked at the giant block of ice, just said 2 words lightly. Akainu. Ron plays cards like a poker player, one by one. These Admiral and Marine soldiers are the cards in his hand. After receiving the order, Akainu stood up without hesitation. The entire right fist suddenly turned into hot magma, and even flowed to the ground. A squeaking sound was made, the entire ground was burned directly. It can be seen how high the temperature of this magma is. At this moment, Akainu stared at the huge ice cube in the sky. I couldn't help but snorted coldly, then, he punched the air fiercely. Meteor volcano. A huge fist made of magma directly smashed the ice cubes in the air into pieces. Just one blow, it neutralizes Diamond George's attack. However, this is not over yet. The hot fist composed of countless rolling magma suddenly broke through the clouds and fell from the sky. Just like the rolling lava splashing everywhere when magma breaks out. Carry out indiscriminate attacks towards the bottom. Not only did it hit the pirates, it also affected the marine below. Akainu was satisfied with his attack. After all, it caused so much damage to the pirates. However, at this time, I suddenly felt a chill on my back. Immediately afterwards, one foot kicked directly on his waist. Huge force. Even making Akainu's body bend into a recurve bow. Then there was a plop. 4.9 he fell directly from the high platform. Then came Ron's roar. I only asked you to break the ice cubes. Who asked you to do extra steps? Look at how many Marines you accidentally injured in your attack. As a Marine Admiral, your goal is not only to annihilate the enemy, but also to protect your own soldiers so that they suffer minimal losses. And not only did you fail to protect them from minimal losses, but you also allowed them to be affected by your attacks and suffer heavy losses. If it happens again, I'll kick your legs straight off. Akainu climbed up from the stage with difficulty, and was beaten to the ground with a look on his face. I felt a sharp pain in my waist, and my whole body almost broke. This time he finally felt what it felt like for Kizaru to be beaten. At this moment, Ron's scolding of him was still echoing in his mind. However, this time, Akainu was not convinced. He felt that as long as the pirates were eliminated, it was acceptable to pay this price. Wasn't it just a case of accidentally injuring a few Marine soldiers? This is inevitable, not to mention that I have tried my best to avoid it. But more pirates were eliminated. What's wrong with that? Kizaru couldn't help but snickered when he saw Akainu being beaten and chewed by a dog, and the wrinkles on his face almost broke out in laughter. Finally, they can experience the feeling of being targeted by the Inspector General. 099. Dorag. Luffy, you go first, your grandpa won't do anything to you. Previous chapter next chapter advertisement. The pirates were dumbfounded by this operation. What happened to Marine? Why do you feel that the structure of the current Marine is different from the previous Marine? Let's not talk about why Marshal Sengoku is not sitting in the command position. Just talking about this bald head, doesn't it mean that he has too much power? Why do you feel like you can fight whoever you want at Marine headquarters? Who is this guy? All the pirates in the Whitebeard Pirates group were confused at this moment. A head full of question marks, because they discovered that all 3 Marine admirals were beaten up by this bald man without exception. This is fighting. This is summit war. Isn't this level of fighting when these high-level combat capabilities are needed? Why do you dare to attack them at this time? They discovered that it seemed that after every admiral attack, he would be beaten up by this bald man when he returned. As for Aokiji, the beating he received was relatively light. That Kizaru and Akainu seem a bit miserable, not just them. Even Whitebeard can't understand it. As a commander-in-chief, the most taboo thing is to criticize his subordinates harshly during the war. But this bald man actually punished his men while fighting. The most incredible thing is, these Marine admirals don't even dare to resist. And it seems that the more they fight Admiral over there, the higher the morale of the Marine soldiers gets. What kind of operation is this? Shouldn't the military become more and more disorganized? Based on his understanding, this bald man should have just arrived. How could Marine convince everyone in less than half a month? 15. Even the resourceful General Sengoku allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Whitebeard was confused. Ron is like a chess player, sitting at the highest position on the battlefield and commanding the overall situation. All attack rhythms follow Ron's instructions, just like the previous 3 Admiral attacks. No one moved until Ron spoke. Only those named by Ron stood up and launched an attack. After attacking, it will automatically return to its original position. It has to be said that this command model greatly improves the efficiency of the entire battlefield. When a card is needed, Innen will play the Minister of Defense card. Respond to enemy attacks. Certainly, not everyone is happy. At least Sengoku, who was standing nearby, looked a little gloomy at the moment. And this time, Ron seemed to have remembered this matter. Then he knocked on the chair, said to Sengoku beside him. Marshal Sengoku, you won't mind if I direct this battle, right? Ron's voice was very calm and didn't seem like a question. After Sengoku heard this, his face darkened. I just felt a stream of blood in my chest, ready to spurt out. He was going to be pissed off at Ron. Sengoku. Advertisement. He hesitated to speak. Are you asking me? You've already directed the first half, and now you think of asking me if you mind? Do you think I don't exist? Don't you understand why I've been standing here? I am a dignified Marshal Marine. The seat you are sitting in now is where I should be sitting. As a result, you guys sitting here without saying anything, and you are actually leaving me alone. At least bring me a chair to sit on. As a result, I have become more energetic in commanding here, and I can use the Marine Admiral more easily than I do. I have been giving instructions for a long time, and now I just remembered and asked if I would mind? Even if I say I mind, so what? Can you hand over the command to me? Also, your tone of voice is not to seek my consent at all, but to inform me. A bleak wind blew by. Take a few leaves with you. Sengoku put his hands in his pockets and stood alone next to Ron. Now, a BGM sounded in Sengoku's heart. At the Summit War in the 1980s, I stood there like a gangster, wearing my flashiest shirt and feeling very emotional. When someone comes to take pictures, remember to put your pockets in. Just think of me as transparent. As long as you don't mind, Ron nodded. When did I say I don't mind anymore? I didn't even say anything, so don't answer for me, Hunden. Sengoku was speechless, but there was one thing he had to admit. Ron's control over the army was indeed better than his. There is no chaos in the command. It's just that the punishment was very heavy. Kizaru and Akainu were so miserable. Even Sengoku couldn't help but feel a little sympathetic. Especially this guy Kizaru, he was scolded for everything he did and praised for everything he did. Now, the two sides have already gone through 2 rounds of battle. In these 2 rounds, Whitebeard did not get any benefits. So, Whitebeard decided he could no longer sit at the rear. Thinking of this, Whitebeard jumped directly from the Moby Dick. With a bang, it landed, shouted loudly, "Whoever wants to follow me, throw away your life and follow me." Given order, all the pirates reveled on the spot. He raised his knife and jumped down with Whitebeard. "Daddy, I'm going to follow Dad, rescue Ace." In an instant, thousands of pirates, from the remaining 30 or so pirate ships, jumped down directly. A piece of black water, he raised the weapon in his hand, whether it was a knife or a gun, and began to charge towards the execution platform. Advertisement: the captain of the Whitebeard pirates was not to be outdone. He rushed out immediately. Foil Beasta held 2 swords and rushed to the front. The average marine is no match for him. Beasta felt like he was in a deserted place. Ron sits at the top, you can see it clearly from the highest point. At this moment, he shouted softly, "Hawkeye, deal with him." As soon as he finished speaking, Hawkeye, who was waiting on the spot, immediately pulled out the black knife behind him. From a very far distance, he swung his sword directly. The light green slash directly cut off the ice on the ground. It cut through the air, cut off the sky, and directly cut off the direction of Foil Beasta's progress with the force of breaking bamboo. Foil Beasta's reaction speed was extremely fast, and he stopped just before he was struck. Only then did he escape the blow. "Hawkeye Mahawk? I have long wanted to meet the world's best swordsman. I didn't expect you to obey that bald man's order. I thought you were unwilling to submit to others?" Beasta sneered. Then he turned around and faced Hawkeye with his 2 swords. Hawkeye didn't say much, he didn't bother to explain, so he spoke very little. He just held the black knife in one hand and pointed it at Beasta. "I will be your opponent. In a simple word, Hawkeye is incomparable. There is a situation where one man is in charge and no one can open it." And at this moment, facing the vast sea of pirates, Ron continued to order. The Special Operations Marines begin to charge. 2 levels of Marine soldiers with flowing water and rock-breaking fist skills were integrated by Ron. A Special Warfare Navy was formed. Their individual combat capabilities are extremely strong. Because he has 2 levels of flowing water-breaking fist, he is much stronger than ordinary people in terms of strength and speed. The power is basically around 1,700. Ron gave an order. These Marine soldiers rushed forward and started a fierce battle with the pirates who rushed in front. Have to say, with their current strength, they can definitely gain the upper hand. Every time Ron commanded the battlefield, he would adopt tactics that ensured his side's victory. Whitebeard will send out the captain, and Ron will send out the Marine general who is stronger than them. Whitebeard sends out soldiers to charge, and Ron will send out Marines who are stronger than these soldiers to counterattack. This is considered the 3rd round of showdown between the Whitebeard pirates and Marine. The whole regiment charges. Whitebeard is really strong and no one can stop him. "Kizaru, go and stop Whitebeard." Ron sat on the highest podium. He ordered Kizaru below him. Kizaru looked confused. Is this giving the most dangerous job to myself? Advertisement: there is no doubt that the most dangerous figure in this battle is Whitebeard. Never imagined. He actually put himself on this task. Kizaru was really speechless. After all, I tried my best in this battle, right? You can't just let me do everything. This is Whitebeard. Any questions? Seeing that Kizaru has not moved yet. Ron's tone was a little cold. Kizaru shook his head repeatedly. No, I'll go right away. Kizaru stood up 753 reluctantly, and slowly prepared to set off over there. This shows that he really doesn't want to deal with Whitebeard. However, Kizaru didn't even wait for 2 steps. Ron kicked him directly. He kicked Kizaru in the butt. The huge force directly caused Kizaru to fly backwards. Flying several hundred meters, came directly opposite Whitebeard. Because it appeared too suddenly, the 2 of them were stunned with their big eyes facing each other. Kizaru. There is no such thing. I originally wanted to come over slowly and leisurely to delay the time. Who would have thought that he would be kicked by the Inspector General? Why am I so unlucky? Feeling the cold eyes behind me. Kizaru shivered all over. I can only bite the bullet and do it. And at this time, suddenly, a mysterious fleet appears near Marineford. On the leading ship, Straw Hat Luffy said excitedly. "It's Ace, great, we finally caught up." At this moment, Dorag put down the telescope and couldn't help but frown. The Demon King, who had just been rescued from the underwater prison, could not help but frown at this moment. Bartholomew Kuma. They actually want to execute the Big Bear. Dorag. Let's launch an attack now and save Mr. Shang. Dolog looked at the 3 people on the execution platform. One is Pluten Rayleigh, one is Bartholomew Kuma, and the other is Ace. Respectively represent the old, middle and young 3rd-generation pirate forces. It was arranged this way on purpose, in order to cut off the past, present and future of pirates. But what caught Dorag's attention even more was the other old man sitting next to these 3 people. At this moment, he crossed his arms. Look at the scene below. That man is Garp. Dolog said in a deep voice. Old man Garp is in charge of the last level. It's really troublesome. Luffy, I will send you directly to the execution platform. It is up to you to pass this last hurdle. Your grandpa won't really do anything to you, only you can get through this last hurdle. 100. Garp. It's time to test my acting skills. Previous chapter. Next chapter advertisement. Luffy, I will use my ability to send you directly to the execution platform, which is the most difficult and dangerous place for others to break through. But for you, that's the safest place. Your grandpa won't really do anything to you, only you can get through this final hurdle. This is the only way if you want to save Ace. Dorag faced the direction of Marine headquarters and said in a deep voice. And at the same time, the southwesterly wind on the sea suddenly changed direction. 180-degree turn. The wind turned into a northeasterly wind, and the entire revolutionary fleet suddenly changed direction and began to slowly move towards the marine headquarters. Luffy was standing on the bow of the boat now, revealing rows of big white fang. He rubbed his fists and said with a grin, "Ah, if I can save Ace, no matter how difficult it is, I will go." Dorag's face, which had been slapped by the sole of his shoe, couldn't help but show the same smile. Have to say, the teeth of Monkey's family are really good, with big white teeth passed down from their ancestors, neat and beautiful. Looking at the actions of the father and son standing on the bow of the boat, the she-male king Ivankov couldn't help but widen his eyes and then said, "Drag, you are crazy, this is Summit War. It is the final battle between Marine and Whitebeard. Are you just going to let Luffy go up there? Is he your biological son?" Dorag looked serious and said with raised corners of his mouth, "Don't worry, I believe Luffy. I also believe that old man Garp is reluctant to beat Luffy." Ivankov sighed helplessly. On the one hand, they came out this time to help Luffy save Ace. On the other hand, the main reason is also to save Bartholomew Kuma. Therefore, no matter what, they must rush to the execution platform. But it was Garp who guarded the execution platform, which doubled the difficulty. He was there alone, and it could be said that one man was in charge and no one could get through. At this time, Sabo suddenly came out. "Sabo." Luffy said excitedly that he only learned the news that Sabo was still alive after being beaten away by the Big Bear to the Revolutionary Army headquarters. It was also this meeting. Restore Sabo's memory instantly. "Luffy, we will definitely rescue Ace." Luffy nodded. "If Ace sees you alive, he will be very happy." At this time, the 4 captains of the Revolutionary Army also came up. Marine destroyed their headquarters, so the 4 captains were summoned back urgently. The Revolutionary Army has assembled all its current combat capabilities. "Leader Dorag, is that Garp really that strong? Is it true that no one except Luffy can break through? I still don't recommend letting Luffy take the risk. Let me be responsible for the rescue. My aircraft breaks through in the air, so the chance of winning should be better." These army commanders began to persuade. "I know the old man. Guess how many punches he can withstand Luffy." "Chief, are you asking the wrong question? Battlefield Center?" Now, Kizaru was kicked in front of Whitebeard by Ron. Feeling Ron's eyes staring at him from behind, advertisement. "So it's okay if he doesn't fight, even if you are facing the strongest man in the world." Kizaru twisted his mouth, touched his chin, and thought to himself, "It's okay to let me work hard, but don't let me work hard. Facing Whitebeard, this can cost lives. The Inspector General is deliberately trying to make things difficult for me." Kizaru feels that the Inspector General may be biased towards the 3 admirals. "I always feel like I'm being targeted lately." At this time, suddenly a blue flame appeared as if he was reborn from the ashes. Straight up from the ground, the eagle roars in the sky. 2 pairs of blue wings waved vigorously. In an instant, a huge force of wind pushed to the ground. Suddenly there was dust everywhere. A gust of wind pressure even blew away all the surrounding marine soldiers. It is none other than Phoenix Marco, the captain of the Whitebeard pirate ship squadron. Kizaru was stunned when he saw this scene. Wasn't this guy handcuffed with seastone handcuffs? How did you tell him to break free? After cuffing Marco with seastone handcuffs, Kizaru let the marine soldiers take care of Marco with confidence. But he never expected that this guy would escape. How did you do that? Although he is obviously a user with fruit abilities, why can he escape when being handcuffed by seastone? Not good. When I think of this, Kizaru suddenly felt a chill running down his spine. This guy ran away. The Inspector General won't think that I let him go on purpose, right? Kizaru has been diagnosed with PTSD, so when Marco ran away, the first thing he thought about was whether Ron would misunderstand him for letting him go. As expected, when Marco breaks free of his handcuffs and soars into the sky, Ron's expression changed. Even without looking back, Kizaru could feel the eyes looking at him from behind, which became cold. This cold feeling sent shivers down his spine. "It's over." Kizaru secretly said, "I can't explain it now. Damn Marco, how did this guy escape? It's not good to escape at any time, but it's when I'm facing Whitebeard." Sweat broke out on Kizaru's forehead. He didn't want Ron to misunderstand him as deliberately letting Marco go. As expected, what was supposed to happen happened. Ron roared from behind. Kizaru heard this. Advertisement. The wrinkled old face couldn't help but twitch. "Turn around suddenly," he immediately explained awkwardly. This time it really has nothing to do with me. I really didn't give in." Kizaru almost cried. This time he was really wronged, and this matter really had nothing to do with him. If the previous times were because he wanted to fish, then this time it was really an accident. He also didn't figure out how Marco escaped. It could only be that Whitebeard's men have some weirdos who can make keys. However, Ron didn't scold him for letting go. Instead he said angrily, "As a Marine Admiral, don't you know what you should do after capturing the enemy general? Not only did you not supervise him closely, you even threw him aside casually." Kizaru was stunned. He didn't expect that this time the Inspector General believed that he had not let the situation slip. This is so unexpected. He thought he would be misunderstood this time. But it's okay, as long as the Inspector General believes that he didn't leak anything. To the question Ron scolded, Kizaru was also confused. What should you do after capturing the enemy general? Seeing Kizaru's stupid expression, Ron became even more angry. At this moment, he was sitting on the highest podium. Ron directly took out a slipper. Sengoku's eyes widened in his expression of disbelief. He was so angry that he just threw it at Kizaru. With Armament Hockey's ultimate slippers, a brush sound. Spinning rapidly in the air, he arrived in front of Kizaru 100 meters away in an instant. Kizaru didn't even have time to react. He hadn't even seen what it was yet. Only a snap was heard. The slippers stuck directly on his face. Kizaru felt a burning pain all over his right cheek. Touch it with your hand. Only then did I realize that it was a slipper and it was already stuck to my face. Kizaru almost cried. It was the first time in his life that he was slapped in the face with a slipper. It really hurts. Hot. At this moment, Dorag, who was watching this scene from a distance, couldn't help but feel shocked. Subconsciously touching the left side of his face, he seemed to be reminded of the unbearable past. All the pirates in the audience were dumbfounded to see this bald man throwing everything around him. Advertisement at this time, Ron sat back in the chair. Then he seemed to be talking to Kizaru, but he was actually talking to all the Marines present. Listen, to these pirates who are attacking us. If we fight on land, kill them on land. If we fight on the sea, let them drown in the sea. In this battle, there is no capture, only killing. When I catch the opponent's senior general, no one should forget to hit me last. If you are like Kizaru again and let the opponent escape because you don't last a last hit, you will be severely punished. As soon as Ron finished speaking, countless Marine engineers immediately cheered. The Inspector General is mighty. This is so relieving. This is the happiest way to deal with these heinous pirates. This saves them from having to entertain the pirate captives every time, which will make them angry just looking at them. And at this moment, Sengoku, standing next to Ron, couldn't help but frown. Then he said, I'm afraid that's not possible. It's Enies Lobby's job to try them. We don't have the power to do that. We can only arrest them. Ron shook his head. The tone was very serious. In troubled times, heavy codes are used, but now the pirates are taking the initiative to attack us. If this situation is not solved on the spot, where is the majesty of Marine? If we don't establish our majesty at this time, wouldn't it mean that just any little thief would dare to attack our Marine headquarters? Moreover, if they are simply captured, they will cause secondary harm to Marine once they escape. I don't want to play with the lives of soldiers. When these pirates dare to attack the Marine headquarters, then the trial will be unnecessary. They are already sentenced to death. Sengoku sighed. He couldn't find anything to say to refute Ron. And at this time, Marco, who was flying in the air, looked in the direction of Whitebeard and couldn't help but smile. Dad, I'm going to rescue Ace right now. Whitebeard couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. As expected of the captain of his own team, he was not easily caught by the enemy. Subsequently, Marco flapped his wings vigorously in the direction of the execution platform. The whole person was like a bow and arrow, braving light blue flames and rushing directly in the direction of Ace. It's in the air now. Dad restrained Kizaru, so no one could stop him. Ace, here I come, Marco shouted. At this moment, Garp was sitting on the execution platform with his hands crossed and his head lowered. Let Marco get close, until Ron shouted softly. Garp. Deal with him. The entire board is controlled by Ron. Ron's command was like an activating spell. Garp instantly raised his head and clenched his fists. He had a hunch that Luffy was coming soon, and it was time to test his acting skills.